Subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
After 10 days, the strength of the Umbrella Company will rise to a new level again. At the same time, in the process, the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory also has the latest news. Soon, Lin Yu took Alice to the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory again. Right away, Abigail excitedly reported her latest research results to Lin Yu. Boss, the Hunter 3.9 Hunter armor has fully entered the mass production stage. All machines are fully loaded and should be able to produce about 100 Hunter-type steel battle suits every day. As for the Tyrant's steel battle suit, all the basic experimental work has been basically completed, and it will soon reach the goal of mass production. However, there's still one thing that the boss needs to help solve. The excitement on Abigail's face gradually calmed down, and then she said, "The Tyrant's body is too heavy, and his power is too strong. Even aerospace metal cannot allow him to fully exert his strongest combat effectiveness. So, I made a lot of adjustments in terms of metal selection. But now I can find only one kind of metal that can carry the Tyrant's terrifying power, and its name is vibranium. However, our company Vibranium doesn't have much inventory, not even enough for a steel battle suit." Chapter 83:30 verses 5,000. Lin Yu quickly understood Abigail's words. This time she asked herself to come. Reporting the results was secondary. The most important thing was to ask Lin Yu to help find a solution. The Tyrant's fighting power is really too strong. Not only is his body weight very strong, his strength is also much stronger than other biological species. Therefore, the kind of aerospace metal used in the Hunter armor is completely unable to meet the needs of the Tyrant. Even the armor made of aerospace metal would affect his performance. But wanting to make a steel battle suit entirely out of vibranium, Umbrella Company didn't have enough inventory. Abigail also knew how precious vibranium was, but in her eyes, she always felt that her boss was omnipotent. Therefore, I tentatively asked the boss if he could get vibranium. If he can get it, use vibranium materials to make a steel battle suit for the Tyrant. If he can't get it, then just use aerospace metal to make up for it. But after hearing Abigail's words, Lin Yu smiled knowingly. Then, he said to Abigail, "Let's use aerospace metal first, and then make a batch of steel battle suits." Lin Yu's words made Abigail feel a little discouraged. The meaning of this sentence sounds obvious. It seems that vibranium should be gone. However, Lin Yu went on to say, the Tyrant steel battle suit does not need to use very good metal. Their 14 original combat effectiveness is already very strong. The steel battle suit only needs to help them increase their mobility. Wait for the biochemical. All the young men in the emergency response force have been injected with the G virus. So the best thing to do is to give them all a steel battle suit made of vibranium. Lin Yu's words made Abigail excited again. It's not that the boss can't get vibranium, but he wants to use vibranium on his own people, not on the Tyrant. The Tyrant is, after all, just a biological monster. Even if a lot of people die, Lin Bao won't feel bad. But those members of the armed forces are different. They're all real human beings. Moreover, they're all loyal to Lin Yu, so they're the ones who deserve higher equipment and treatment. However, there was another point that made Abigail a little confused and asked, "Boss, can you really get so much vibranium?" Vibranium is extremely rare in the world. The Umbrella Company's inventory was because they were too rich, so they spent a lot of money to buy some. Hearing Abigail's question, Lin Yu smiled slightly and said mysteriously, "Just wait, vibranium will be there." As a time traveler, Lin Yu naturally knows where vibranium is. Although Black Panther has not yet appeared in the outside world, Lin Yu has always known about the existence of Wakanda. Lin Yu naturally also watched the movie Black Panther in his previous life. Therefore, Lin Yu also knows that there are countless vibranium in Wakanda. But there is a problem, which is more serious. That is, Wakanda's defense is relatively strong. In the movie, Thanos' Vanguard army has a hard time breaking through that defense. Although Lin Yu believed in his biochemical army, this head-on approach was a bit silly. Lin Yu, on the other hand, had already thought of a better way. But still need to wait a little bit. 5 days later, Umbrella Corporation's Raccoon City Hive underground base. In the training ground, Lin Yu put his hands behind his back and quietly watched the training of armed members of the Umbrella Company after being injected with the 10,000G virus, and successfully. They were all quite excited. Having gained such powerful strength, these guys were unable to fully adapt to their bodies for a while. So far, about 5,000 people have been injected with the G virus. Moreover, the probability of success is very high. A full 96% or so. Much better than expected. Alexia attributed this high success rate to the fact that the injectors were originally very physically fit. Strong physical fitness greatly improves the success rate of injections. At the moment, on the training ground, Weskier is leading his men to adapt to their bodies. Some are doing exercise with equipment, and some are doing actual combat. However, when they saw Lin Yu arriving, everyone immediately stopped their training and hurriedly saluted their boss. All members of the Umbrella Company's armed forces respect their bosses very much. Originally, Lin Yu was very generous and caring towards his own people. In addition, now that they have gained so much power because of their boss, they respect Lin Yu even more. Lin Yu smiled and nodded to his loyal subordinates without any pretense of being a big boss. And this time, just when Lin Yu was inspecting the training of his men, in Lin Yu's mind, a system prompt suddenly sounded. The system has been silent for many days. As soon as it appeared, it brought good news to Lin Yu. Ding! The appearance of the perfect integrator of extremists has been detected. Please go to the host to obtain it as soon as possible. Although extremists is a semi-finished product, there is a certain chance that a perfect integrate will appear. The genes of the perfect integrator are very powerful and can be absorbed by the biochemical technology tree. Lin Yu was slightly startled by this system prompt. Unexpectedly, the semi-finished extremist can actually produce a perfect integrator. Lin Yu hurriedly asked the Red Queen to conduct detection. A few seconds later, Hong Miao's voice rang in Lin Yu's mind. Boss, it was detected that in a warehouse in a small town in the suburbs of New York, a woman was receiving an injection of extremists. Based on her appearance search, it was determined that the person's name was Pepper Potts, who is the son of Stark Industrial Group CEO Tony Stark. Secretary, beside her, there are a total of 30 human males. Through testing, they should all be hosts of extremists. Lin Yu was slightly startled by the Red Queen's words. Obviously, the 30 human males mentioned by the Red Queen should all be Killian's subordinates. Killian is really a talent. Unexpectedly, he still embarked on this path when his appearance changed so many plots. It seems that he has a soft spot for Pepper Potts. But Lin Yu has no time to worry about that. The most important thing is to get the genes of Pepper Potts as soon as possible. At this moment, Lin Yu raised his head, looked at the group of overly energetic guys in front of him, and suddenly an idea came to his mind. Then, he said to Weskier not far away, Weskier, come here. Hearing Lin Yu calling him, Weskier hurriedly ran a few steps and came to Lin Yu. There was still some excitement on his face, seeing that his team is getting stronger and stronger. He, the person in charge of the Umbrella Company's armed forces, is still very happy. I see you are all so excited. So let's go out and practice your skills. I'll give you a task, Lin Yu said slowly. A few minutes later, a total of 50 large transport helicopters took off from a secret base of the Umbrella Company. Weskier, with his somewhat over-energetic team members, flew to 39 cargo ports in eastern New York. There were a total of 50 large transport helicopters, each with 100 extremely excited armed members of the Umbrella Company who had just been successfully injected with the G virus. A total of 5,000 people were dispatched at the same time. They were full of expectations for their first mission after integrating the G virus. Looking forward to showing off my skills. And at the moment, in the warehouse, a small town in the suburbs of New York, Killian was standing on a high platform, speaking to the 30 men who had integrated extremists below. The 30 subordinates, although some were male and some were female, some were fat and some were thin, were all dressed differently and looked a little uneven when standing together. But Killian has great trust in them. These people, after all, have successfully integrated extremists. Each one is a powerful warrior. If placed on a battlefield, it would definitely be 1 against 100. It's time to show your powerful power. Your opponent is just a turtle hiding in steel armor. When he comes, let him understand what the real risk is. Killian knew that if she captured Pepper Potts, Tony Stark would definitely come to save her. At that time, I will kill Tony Stark in front of Pepper Potts. Not only can he avenge the hatred of the past, but he can also make Pepper Potts understand how powerful he is. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Below, 30 strong men who had been injected with extremists shouted crazily after hearing their boss's speech. Full of momentum. Chapter 84. Blocking out the sky and the sun. Tony Stark is indeed on his way here. But he learned that when Pepper Potts was captured, he was performing a mission in Northern Europe with his Avengers teammates. So, if you want to get here, it will take at least some time. And at the moment, Killian and his 30 men injected with extremists have laid a dragnet, just waiting for Tony Stark to arrive. At this moment, 30 of Killian's men were quietly patrolling around the warehouse. Their eyes have been slowly staring at the sky. They already knew who they were going to face. That's the legendary Iron Man. But although they knew who they were going to face, they didn't have any fear in their hearts. After being injected with extremists, they felt like gods. The power on his body is as powerful as a dream, and the most terrifying thing is that he can release intense high temperature, which can not only be used to attack, but also can make his severed limbs. These people, before being injected with extremists, were all disabled. Most of them were retired soldiers. He was discharged from the army after being wounded on the battlefield. The basic experience is very similar to that of the dead Severin. Essentially, they're still the same soldiers, but now they serve Killian. And in warehouse, trapped on the experimental bed, Pepper Potts' body is still being modified by extremists. It looks like the situation is good, and the chances of the transformation being successful are high. But what makes Killian a little confused is that the integration speed of Pepper Potts and extremists is a bit slow. Normally, 2 or 3 hours at most are enough for other people to integrate extremists. However, it had been more than 4 hours since Pepper Potts injected extremists. So far, it seems that it is still being integrated. If Maya Hansen were here, I could study it carefully. Unfortunately, Maya Hansen has been taken away by Umbrella. Killian doesn't think Maya Hansen, who was taken away by the Umbrella Company, can come back again. I'm afraid the situation is already in danger. In Killian's heart, he had given up hope on Maya Hansen. While Killian was quietly waiting for Tony Stark to arrive, he suddenly heard a roar, like a helicopter, and definitely more than one helicopter. Killian's eyes lit up and he thought to himself, could it be that Tony Stark is here? But then he had some doubts. If it was Tony Stark, why did he come by helicopter? Shouldn't he just fly over wearing a steel battle suit? Very strange. But Killian didn't panic. He didn't go out, but stood quietly next to Pepper Potts. No matter how strong Tony Stark is, even if he defeats 30 of his men, he still can't defeat himself. After all, he has his most beloved person in his hands. Killian's face showed a smile, as if his conspiracy had succeeded. At the same time, outside the warehouse, Killian's 30 men also heard the rumbling sound. Then, they saw some small spots of light appearing in the sky, flashing one after another. Since it was night, they couldn't see the helicopter, they could only see the lights on the plane flashing. Everyone gathered in front of the warehouse and waited quietly. Soon, those helicopters arrived above everyone's heads. See clearly what it is. That was not an ordinary helicopter, but a huge transport helicopter. Compared with ordinary helicopters, these transport helicopters are larger in size. Moreover, the number is also a bit scary. A total of 50 transport helicopters were lined up in the sky, blocking out the sky and the sun. Killian's 30 men suddenly had some bad premonitions in their hearts. It seems something is not quite right. This shouldn't be Tony Stark. It's certainly not his steel battle suit. But what is inside those transport helicopters? At this time, in the sky, a transport helicopter nearly 50 meters above the ground slowly opened its rear hatch. Then, while all Killian's men were stunned, a humanoid black figure jumped directly from the opening door of the transport helicopter. At this distance, jump down directly? Most of Killian's men are veterans, so they naturally know that it is impossible to use a parachute at such a distance. There was no time to open the parachute. What do they want to do? 30 guys injected with extremists slowly backed away. They didn't want to be splashed with blood and minced meat by the guy who was smashed into a pulp. There was a buzzing sound in the sky. Finally, the black figure finally landed on the ground. The deafening sound reached everyone's ears, and the ground shook slightly. Smoke and dust were everywhere. The darkness, coupled with the thick dust, prevented everyone from seeing the man's condition clearly for a while. But soon, the smoke gradually dispersed in the breeze. The black figure was also revealed. But what surprised everyone was that the man in black was standing on the ground intact. Under his feet, the concrete floor had completely collapsed and turned into a big pit. And he was fine. That man was wearing a black combat uniform. He was short, his hair was neatly combed back, and he even wore sunglasses in the dark night. Pretentious to the extreme. On his clothes, there's an obvious red and white umbrella-shaped pattern on the left chest. But when they saw this sign, everyone was so frightened that they took 2 steps back. This sign is still recognized by everyone present. After all, the Umbrella Company is so famous. But how could he be from the Umbrella Company? Shouldn't it be Tony Stark? Even if there were reinforcements called by Tony Stark, they would at most be people from SHIELD. Why is Tony also related to the Umbrella Company? Everyone had a vague premonition in their hearts. And just then, in the sky, suddenly another black shadow fell from the sky. Someone else jumped out of the transport helicopter. Then, 30 of Killian's men hurriedly raised their heads and looked at the sky. For a moment, I was so scared that my soul almost flew away. In the sky, there were densely packed black figures, which seemed to block out the sky and the sun. All of them actually jumped off the transport helicopter. They're all crazy. Wrong. They can all withstand the terrifying impact of falling from such a height. The first guy, Wang Zhao, wasn't he just standing there safe and sound? Boom, 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 boom. With countless violent collisions and dust flying all over the sky, the 5,000 members of the Umbrella Company's Biochemical Emergency Response Force, who had successfully integrated the G virus, all jumped directly from the sky. The dark figures directly surrounded the entire warehouse. They were all silent, but with quite excited expressions on their faces. If I had to perform this kind of task before, I would not dare to jump directly. But now, after integrating the G virus, my body is so powerful that I jumped from such a high place and my body was not injured at all, which is really refreshing. Finally, the dust dispersed, and some guys who had their feet stuck in the earth also pulled their feet out. And this time, next to Weskier, a subordinate came up to Weskier's side, frowned and asked, "Captain, where is our enemy?" He looked left and right, like the 20 or 30 humans in front of him near the warehouse. Is it possible? Just them? Chapter 85, Another Enemy, is coming. Weskier is confused now. Linyu didn't tell him how many enemies there were, but just arranged a task for him to obtain blood. What he didn't expect was that when he got here, he only saw 30 enemies, if they can be considered enemies. These people are dressed like a group of street gangsters. His hair was also dyed colorful, and he could not be associated with the enemy at all. And even the enemy. 30 is too few. Weskier was confused, but the 30 of Killian's men were even more confused. What they were waiting for here was Iron Man Tony, but unexpectedly a group of people from the Umbrella Company arrived. And most importantly, those thousands of guys from the Umbrella Company are really terrifying. They actually jumped out of the helicopter with their bodies intact. How amazing are their bodies? Killian's men have also tried many times on their own bodies after being injected with extremists. However, they would never dare to jump from such a high place, because even though extremists has given them powerful recovery abilities, if they fall to the ground from such a height, their vital organs will definitely be smashed into pulp. 30 of Killian's men slowly retreated. They came together, back to back, nervously looking at the men in black around them. And around them, 5,863,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company looked blankly at the people surrounded by them, as if they hadn't figured out what to do for a while. These people don't even have a pistol in their hands. How to spell? Do you spit and drown them? But there are also some guys who have just been injected with extremists, and they don't have very good control over the forces in their bodies. At this tense moment, a red light suddenly lit up on several of Killian's men. It was like a volcano erupted in their bodies. Seeing this scene, Weskier's eyes suddenly lit up. It turns out that these guys in front of me are not ordinary people. All the armed members of the Umbrella Company also became excited. These guys seem to have some skills. Everyone started gearing up. Suddenly, the scene turned from extremely embarrassing to chaos. Weskier and his men had already despaired that there would be no fighting in this mission. However, those Killian's men actually gave him hope again. "Captain, let me go up. I'll fight them one-on-one." "No, Captain, let me go. I've just been injected with the G virus, and I haven't had time to adapt yet. I just want to practice with them." "Captain, I'm going." "Captain, please, Beb, give them to me." For a time, these guys who had been injected with extremists turned out to be a hot commodity. Weskier's head was about to explode. How could a perfectly good mission end up like this? We must not encourage such unhealthy tendencies. You all get out of the way. As the captain, I must be the one to deal with these powerful enemies. Weskier took off his sunglasses, threw them away, and was about to charge forward. It's better to strike first. But at this time, the door of the warehouse was suddenly pushed open from inside. Killian, who was more confused than everyone else, walked out. Seeing the thousands of armed members of the Umbrella Company in front of him, he was completely stunned. Just now, when he was inside the warehouse, he heard something going on outside that seemed to be wrong. At this glance, something was definitely wrong. The person who came was not Tony Stark, but the Umbrella Corporation. And there are so many people. He felt suddenly sad. Why am I always targeted by Umbrella companies? Killian really didn't want to go up against Umbrella. Although he didn't see the scene where Weskier and his men fell from the sky just now, he already knew that he couldn't afford to offend the Umbrella Company at all. But just when Killian was about to explain something, Weskier suddenly moved. He didn't want to give the other party a chance to explain. "It's hard to get out. How can I do it without a good fight?" Weskier directly handed a black suitcase in his hand to the arms of a subordinate next to him. Then he ordered, "You go inside and draw blood." After saying that, Weskier rushed forward. These guys must be very strong. This is a good opportunity to test your own strength. The guy who was ordered to draw blood suddenly looked ugly. However, he cannot disobey Weskier's orders. I can only walk quietly into the warehouse. And at the moment, Weskier had turned into a black shadow and instantly arrived in front of one of Killian's men. Punch out. Extremely fast. Killian's men were shot away by Weskier. In the sky, he spurted blood. Weskier didn't hold back. When he was in the base, he was almost exhausted. Training every day and fighting against your own people every day, you can't use your full strength. It's not satisfying at all. Now that I have such a good opportunity, I naturally want to fight hard. Seeing one of his subordinates being suddenly knocked away by the opponent, Killian's expression suddenly changed. His remaining 29 men were also shocked, because Weskier's movements were really too fast. They didn't react at all. He came in front of them like a gust of wind. But after the guy who was knocked out landed on the ground, a strong red light suddenly appeared on his body. Immediately afterwards, he stood up again. The body seems to be unscathed. Weskier's eyes brightened even more. These people really have some skills. With that punch of his, even an elephant would definitely be killed. However, he acted as if nothing was wrong. This is simply a natural living target. What made the armed members of the Umbrella Company even more excited was that after seeing their teammates being knocked away, the more than 30 people in the encirclement all glowed with red light. They actually all have that kind of terrifying recovery ability. At this moment, everyone couldn't bear it any longer, and a large area of black clouds came over them, and they were all hit. Even Killian, who was yelling crazily and explaining something, was surrounded by at least 100 people. This is a completely unfair fight. 5,000 people against 31 makes Killian feel pitiful just thinking about it. However, there must be something hateful about poor people. Weskier dared to take action against these people, and he wasn't like a madman biting everyone he saw. As the head of the Umbrella Company's armed forces, he is not just a martial arts fanatic. Before doing a task, he will search a lot of information and make a lot of preparations for the task. So, of course he knows what Killian is. This kind of guy, with a group of morbid lunatics, has no other use than practicing. But the Umbrella Company sent out too many people this time. It takes hundreds of people to get one enemy. It's simply exaggerated to the extreme. The opportunities to take action are really pitiful. But just as the armed members of the Umbrella Company were pitifully scrambling for opportunities to take action, in the sky, many light spots suddenly appeared. Immediately afterwards, a group of steel armors quickly approached and hovered in the sky. Tony Stark himself hasn't even arrived yet, but dozens of different versions of his steel battle suits have already arrived ahead of schedule. And at the moment, on the ground, the eyes of the 5,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company lit up again. Another enemy is coming. Chapter 86, Desperate Tyrant. At the moment, Tony Stark was flying quickly to Killian's location, but his current location is too far away. He could only let JRVS control the dozens of steel battle suits he had made before and get there first. These dozens of steel battle suits were all recently developed by Tony Stark. Each one has a different history. Through the control of JRVS, they can act independently. No one needs to be in it at all. But when those different models of steel battle suits arrived on the battlefield, and JRVS projected the scene pictures in front of Tony through the camera equipment on the steel battle suits, he was stunned. Why so many people? Turns out they're all from the Umbrella Company. Tony could clearly see the obvious Umbrella Company logo on those people. Why are the Umbrella people here? Could it be that they are here to help him rescue Shao-La? And Tony also saw the 31 Killian men surrounded by people from the Umbrella Company. Each of these Killian's men was shining with fiery red light. Obviously, he was beaten badly. However, whenever they are injured, the power of extremists in their bodies will restore their bodies. This ability has now become the reason why they are miserable. However, fortunately, after such a long period of beating, the fiery red light on their bodies became weaker and weaker. Obviously, extremists cannot provide the energy needed to restore the body forever, like a perpetual motion machine. Seeing all this, Tony has basically understood the situation at the scene. Those people from the Umbrella Company seem to be here to help me. And at the moment, just when Killian's men couldn't hold it anymore, dozens of steel battle suits suddenly appeared in the sky. But this time, the armed members of the Umbrella Company finally reacted quickly. With their previous experience, they knew very well that if they didn't hurry up, the enemy would be robbed. A group of people, using all their strength, jumped up and arrived in front of those steel battle suits in the sky. After integrating the G-Virus, their jumping ability is terrifying. He saw this horrifying scene in the video footage of Tony Stark's steel battlesuit head. Thousands of men in black jumped tens of meters into the air and came directly in front of their steel battlesuits. With one punch, one of his steel battlesuits flew away. The scene in front of him also quickly reversed. Then, he suddenly fell to the ground. In just a few seconds, all of his steel battle suits turned into a pile of scrap metal. Tony Stark is confused. Could it be that they are not here to help you? Before Tony Stark arrived, Weskier took his team and boarded the Umbrella Company's transport helicopter again. Killian and others also died because the power of extremists gradually failed and their injuries were too severe. As for Pepper Potts, he is still sleeping quietly in the warehouse. An incredible change seemed to have taken place in her body. This unfinished extremist seems to be perfectly integrated with her body. When Tony Stark arrived at the scene, he only saw steel fragments and more than 30 beaten bodies. Killian is also on the list. However, what made Tony breathe a long sigh of relief was that his girlfriend was still intact. However, there's something very loving about her. Half an hour later, Umbrella Corporation's Raccoon City Hive underground base. Weskier quickly sent Pepper Potts' genes to Lin Yu's office. The system's introduction to this gene also appeared in Lin Yu's site. Gene name, Extremis Perfect Integrator Gene Strength. 4 stars experience points available. 480 points. Gene contains ability ranking. Strength 50, Agility 50, Defense 50, Attack 50, Special, High Temperature, 140. Special, Recovery Ability, 140-inch. Seeing this experience value, Lin Yu couldn't help but get excited. Unexpectedly, Pepper Potts could provide so much experience value. Although the Umbrella Company already has T-Virus and G-Virus, Lin Yu no longer cares about Extremis. But it has to be said that it does have its own advantages. This high temperature and the ability to recover are very powerful. You go out first. Lin Yu took the Pepper Potts gene from Weskier's hand and said to Weskier. Weskier originally wanted to complain to his boss that there were too few enemies, but seeing Lin Yu's expression, he didn't dare to say anything more and turned around and walked out. After Weskier left, in Lin Yu's hand, light flashed. Pepper Potts' genes disappeared in his hands. At the same time, the biochemical technology tree system in Lin Yu's mind instantly burst into violent light. The experience points of the 5 branches instantly soared by a large amount. The main experience points have also increased from 3,320 points to 3,800 points, which is one step closer to the 6,000 points required for advancement. But this time, Lin Yu gained greater benefits by absorbing the genes of Extremis Perfect Integrator. First, Lin Yu suddenly discovered that there was a burst of heat in his body. He hurriedly looked at his hands, and as soon as he thought about it, a terrifying high temperature appeared on his hands. I actually gained the power of high temperature in Extremis. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu excitedly picked up a dagger and swiped it lightly in the palm of his hand. A wound suddenly appeared, but soon, a severe high temperature appeared on the wound. Along with the high temperature, the wound recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not only did I gain the power of high temperatures in Extremis, but I also learned its terrifying recovery ability. This is not the end. Lin Yu looked at the biological culture tank in his mind. Vaguely, you can see that there seems to be a fiery red light flashing in the body of the first-generation tyrant. The first-generation tyrant also gained the same ability as himself. Lin Yu hurriedly walked out of his office and came to a training ground in the Hive underground base. After the last experience, Lin Yu no longer dared to summon the tyrant in his office. Its size is really too tall. At this time, a light flashed in front of Lin Yu, and the tyrant's figure appeared in the training ground. Its appearance has not changed much from before. But Lin Yu could see that there was a faint fiery red light on its chest between its breaths. Lin Yu closed his eyes, and then the god's telekinesis came into the tyrant's body. Under Lin Yu's control, the tyrant's hands turned fiery red at the same time. Really, today's tyrant already has the power zone of Extremis. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu controlled the tyrant and gently grabbed a metal table nearby with his hand. The table slowly shape-shifted and finally turned into a puddle of liquid. A few minutes later, after testing the current strength of the tyrant, Lin Yu quit controlling the tyrant. His face also showed excitement. The first-generation tyrant finally evolved. So, since its power comes from Extremis, let's call it Extremis Tyrant. The emergence of the desperate tyrant has once again enhanced the strength of Lin Yu's biochemical army. The tyrant's combat ability has also become more powerful. Not only the offensive ability and means have been greatly increased, but the powerful recovery ability also makes it more adaptable to various combat environments. It is both offensive and defensive, invincible. And at the moment, just when Lin Yu was about to return to his office, another piece of good news reached Lin Yu's ears through the Red Queen. Upon hearing the news, Lin Yu's eyes suddenly lit up, and he became even more excited. It seems that it's time to make your next plan, Lin Yu said to himself. Chapter 87: The Backlash of Tesseract. Soon, Lin Yu walked out of the training ground, then came to a secret laboratory. This laboratory was only established recently. Moreover, it was established for Dr. Eric. At the moment, in this laboratory, Dr. Eric also has several assistants provided to him by the Umbrella Company, who are working hard on a machine. This machine looks somewhat similar to the machine from the previous Battle of New York. However, it is smaller, Moreover, it has become sideways. As soon as Lin Yu entered the door, he saw a dark blue light suddenly emitting from the machine. Then, the light gradually condensed into a blue light spot more than 10 meters away. The light spot slowly expanded and gradually turned into a portal. It was exactly the same as the previous portal over New York, only much smaller. Seeing this scene, Lin Yu suddenly became even more excited. With the portal 580, nothing can stop the development of the Umbrella Company. Lin Yu hurriedly came up and asked, "Dr. Eric, where does this portal lead to?" At the moment, Dr. Eric was still extremely excited. Without even looking back, he pointed directly to a room next to him. Lin Yu was stunned for a moment, then turned his head and looked in the direction pointed by Dr. Eric. Really, in that room, the same blue light was seen. At this time, Eric seemed to realize who had just asked him. He turned around hurriedly and said to Lin Yu with a smile, "Boss, the picture is here." In the days since he came to Umbrella Company, Eric has been deeply shocked by the power of Umbrella Company. He often goes out for walks, but he has only visited less than 1/10 of the Hive underground base. Obviously, the underground base where he is located is huge and terrifying. Although Dr. Eric only knows how to do research, he is not a fool. Naturally, we understand that Lin Yu, the boss of the Umbrella Company, is definitely not an ordinary person. However, Lin Yu didn't pay attention to Dr. Eric's attitude. He was most concerned about the portal now. "Is this portal meant to go wherever you want?" Lin Yu asked. Hearing this question, Dr. Eric shook his head and said, "This portal can span countless galaxies, but doesn't just go wherever you want, because this portal is two-way. If you want to open the portal on the other side, you must have a positioning device. Now, I put a positioning device in that room to open the two rooms." "The portal," Dr. Eric said slowly. After hearing this explanation, I also understood. He vaguely remembered that in the plot of Avengers 1, Loki placed a positioning device on the Chitauri army in advance to open the portal between the Earth and the Chitauri. Putting it this way, it doesn't seem to be very easy for me to use this portal to go to other planets. But at this time, Dr. Eric added, "However, it does not mean that you cannot go to other planets. This Tesseract can actually be used alone. If you use the Tesseract alone, there are no restrictions on the locator. However, if you use Tesseract alone to travel through space, you can only perform a one-time shuttle and cannot establish a long-term and stable portal. Also, there are two very severe limitations to using Tesseract alone. The first one is that if you want to use it, you must have a strong body. The average human body cannot withstand its backlash. Second, the place you want to go must have been to or seen before. Otherwise, Tesseract will not be able to take you to a place you have never been to." After hearing Dr. Eric's explanation, Lin Yu nodded slowly. Combining some knowledge from his previous life, Lin Yu probably understood what the Tesseract was. In the movie, both Loki and Thanos have used the Tesseract, or Space Gem. The locations they teleported to were places they had seen before. At the same time, their bodies are also very powerful. One is the Giants of Jotunheim, and the other is the Titan clan. That's why we can withstand the backlash of Space Gem. But, thinking of this, Lin Yu also had a bold idea. If there is anyone in the Marvel world who knows all the places in this world best, it must be you. I have seen all the planets and all the forces in the Marvel world. And, after many improvements in the biochemical technology tree, my body should no longer be weaker than Loki, and may even be stronger than Thanos' body. Well, in this case, you can take the Tesseract and send the locator there first, and then come back and open the portal so that your biochemical army and the armed forces of the Umbrella Company can pass by. Lin Yu immediately started trying. If the attempt is successful, it means that the biochemical army of your Umbrella Company can go wherever it wants. This is simply Lin Yu's dream. After closing the portal, Lin Yu directly picked up the Tesseract on the machine. Dr. Eric was slightly startled by Lin Yu's movements. He just wanted to stop Lin Yu's stupid behavior, but it was already too late. After picking up the Tesseract, Lin Yu gently closed his eyes. In Lin Yu's mind, the situation in his office emerged. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu suddenly felt that something like an electric current appeared on the Tesseract. Following his hands, it gradually spread throughout his entire body. Those things feel like electric current, but they are not electric current. It is more like a strange energy. Only when it is spread all over the body can it carry the entire body through space. At the same time, Lin Yu also felt that these energies seemed to be quite violent, running around in his body. If it were an ordinary person, I'm afraid that this energy alone could burn that person's body to ashes. However, Lin Yu is no ordinary person. After several upgrades in the biochemical technology tree, Lin Yu's body has become extremely powerful, and it also possesses the best characteristics of various genes. In Lin Yu's body, there's the power of the Hulk, the potential of the Captain of the United States, the psychokinesis of the T-virus, the recovery ability of Extremis, the ice power of the giants of Jotunheim, and the thunder power of Thor. Horrible body. The combination of many forces created Lin Yu's abnormally strong body. Therefore, although the power from the Tesseract was violent, it was unable to cause any harm to Lin Yu. Even the recovery ability of Extremis is not used. Subsequently, a dark blue light flashed around Lin Yu's body and then suddenly disappeared. In the laboratory, Dr. Eric suddenly showed a look of extreme shock on his face. He just thought Lin Yu was just playing with it. Unexpectedly, I actually used that Tesseract to travel through space. For point one, how could he withstand the Tesseract's backlash? Eric's heart suddenly set off a huge wave. He has been studying Tesseract for a long time, and it can be said that no one on Earth knows Tesseract better than him. At the same time, we also know how powerful this Tesseract's backlash is. Ordinary humans, if they want to use the Tesseract to travel through space, will never succeed. The initial backlash will turn that person directly into ashes. But unexpectedly, Lin Yu, the boss of the Umbrella Company, became the boss. So how powerful is his body? Dr. Eric seems to have discovered a secret that no one knows. However, even if it succeeds, my body will soon be unable to bear it. If I want to use it next time, I will probably have to rest for a long time. Dr. Eric thought secretly, but at this time, rays of blue light flashed suddenly. Lin Yu held the Tesseract in both hands and appeared in front of Dr. Eric again. Chapter 88: The entire army is mobilized. Dr. Eric was completely stunned by Lin Yu's behavior. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward and looked at Lin Yu carefully. I looked left and right, and this time I was finally sure that Lin Yu's body was not damaged at all. Even his 2 hands holding the Tesseract showed no damage at all. "Boss, your body is too strong," Eric said weakly. After hearing Eric's words, Lin Yu realized that the secret of his body seemed to have finally been discovered. But the current Lin Yu is no longer the same person as before. Even if it is discovered, it is no big deal. After all, I am now strong enough to protect myself and those around me. Lin Yu smiled slightly and did not answer Eric's words, but handed the Tesseract to him again. "I'll ask someone to move you to a larger venue later, and then build a larger teleportation device," Lin Yu ordered calmly. This place is okay for Dr. Eric's research, but it seems a bit small for deploying troops. Moreover, the portal created by this equipment is a bit small and cannot allow a large-scale biochemical army to pass through. After the explanation, Lin Yu left the place, and Lin Yu has also begun to prepare his next plan. The pace of Umbrella Company 14 will never be limited by the small Earth. In the future, umbrella companies will appear throughout the universe. But in the first step, Lin Yu still needs to prepare something good for his subordinates. A good thing that can greatly improve their survival ability. But now is not the time to do that. The large teleportation device that Eric was asked to make would have to wait 2 days before it could be made. The newly evolved desperate tyrant has not been cloned yet. Lin Yu bid farewell to Dr. Eric and immediately came to the cloning laboratory again. Although it is almost midnight, Dr. Isaac in the cloning laboratory is still working. It was true that the task given to him by Lin Yu was too heavy. Moreover, with the Chitauri corpses obtained in the Battle of New York, he must turn all of them into clone raw materials as soon as possible. When Lin Yu came to the cloning laboratory and placed the desperate tyrant in front of Dr. Isaac, he was surprised again. However, I am also used to being surprised. Lin Yu comes up with something good every time, and he is just responsible for turning these good things into a group of good things. But cloning the desperate tyrant is not easy. After all, he is too big and consumes much more raw materials than an average hunter or licker. So, Lin Yu arranged for Isaac to clone only 10,000 animals, 10,000 desperate tyrants, plus 300,000 frost hunters, 200,000 thunder lickers, and some steel battlesuits manufactured by the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory are enough for the time being. 5 days later, everything is finally ready. Under Lin Yu's order, the Umbrella Company's biochemical emergency response force quickly assembled. It was still the same 5,000 people as last time. However, these 5,000 people are enough. The latest people who were successfully injected are still undergoing adaptive training. And since the base still needs manpower to patrol and protect, Lin Yu did not let them participate. At the moment, in a huge amount of training ground at the Umbrella Company's Raccoon City Hive underground base, 5,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company, led by Weskier, quietly stood in a square formation. Everyone was dressed in black, with stern faces like statues. Just by standing here motionless, these people had an extremely terrifying aura exuding from their bodies. All of them were injected with the G virus, and each one of them was a strong 1 against 100. But at this moment, they are a whole. An army that obeys Lin Yu's orders completely and unconditionally. Standing at the front of the team, Lin Yu looked around with cold eyes. What surprised everyone was that under the momentum of so many people, the boss didn't even do anything at all. Even his own momentum overshadowed the momentum of the entire team. At this moment, the armed members of these umbrella companies gradually understood that the strength of their bosses did not seem to be simple. Definitely, they don't know where Lin Yu's strength comes from. But they are not surprising. Lin Yu is powerful and easy to understand. There is no way that the boss of such a powerful umbrella company, the leader of an organization that can arrange for 10,000 people to be injected with the G virus at the same time, is an ordinary person. At the moment, Lin Yu said calmly, "Today's mission is different from the past. It may face a real battle, and the enemy is not an ordinary person. They have technological advantages that surpass the Earth countless times. However, you're all the most elite warriors of the Umbrella Company, and you are all heroes who are not afraid of death. I believe that no matter how strong the enemy is, they will never be your opponent." Lin Yu's every word made the soldiers' momentum increase. Lin Yu is actually quite good at motivating people. Moreover, his identity was originally there, and it was already very exciting to be able to stand in front of the soldiers and speak in person. After talking for a few words, Lin Yu finally looked at Weskier, one of his most trusted subordinates. "Weskier, let's go to Huaitian." Lin Yu had already explained the details of this mission to Weskier before. Weskier didn't expect that the boss would be ready to carry out this task so quickly. He narrowed his eyes and became more and more excited. Wakanda? Is there really such a place in the world? Weskier thought to himself. When Lin Yu told him about Wakanda for the first time, he found it quite incredible. Until now, he still thinks so. Is there really a hidden super country on Earth? Since the boss said there is, then there must be. It's just that this time, the veil of this mysterious country will be lowered by myself. Soon, 5,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company set off under the leadership of Weskier. They didn't enjoy the battle 5 days ago at all. But today, judging from the boss's personal speech, we should be able to have a good fight. And at the same time, under Lin Yu's control, more than 500,000 biological culture chambers in the Umbrella Company's hive cloning laboratory were slowly opened. More than 500,000 biochemical monsters came out of the biological cultivation warehouse. When they're not participating in battles, they usually stay in these biological cultivation chambers. This is not only the place where they were born, but also the place where they rest. These biochemical monsters lined up in a long line, passed through the underground passage, and came to the king of a secret base connected to the hive underground base. And at the moment, Weskier also brought his men to this base a long time ago. Here is another large underground base built specifically for the portal by Lin Yu. It was built to enable large-scale transmission. Dr. Eric has already built a new and larger transmission device here. A teleportation device larger than the one during the Battle of New York. In the center of the device is the Tesseract, which emits a light blue light. 5,000 Umbrella Company Biochemical Emergency Response Force soldiers stood at the forefront. Behind them were 10,000 huge, desperate tyrants, 200,000 thunder lickers, 300,000 frost hunters, and 3,000 steel hunters who had already put on steel armor. 10 iron tyrants. Immediately afterwards, under the control of Dr. Eric, a violent blue light burst out from the front of the huge amounts of machine. A huge amounts of portal appeared directly in front of the team. Through the portal, you could see the jungle and grassland on the other side. It's still night in Raccoon City, but on the other side of the portal, it's already sunny. Obviously, that place should be on the other side of the earth. Chapter 89. The army arrives in Wakanda for Wakanda. Lin Yu's already had ideas. This mysterious high-tech country has always hidden their existence on the earth. Very few on Earth know of their existence, or rather, almost none. Even if anyone knew, it would probably only be the bald magician Ancient One. But after Lin Yu traveled to this world, he has not yet encountered the Ancient One. It's not like she cares much about Umbrella. Lin Yu remembered that in the previous life movie, the main responsibility of the Ancient One was actually to protect the Earth from being invaded by other dimensions. She doesn't care much about the internal strife on Earth. But although Lin Yu has not yet come into contact with the Ancient One, he has been paying attention to the whereabouts of the Ancient One. Just like during the Battle of New York, the Red Queen reported to Lin Yu that the Ancient One appeared in New York. However, as long as she did not take the initiative to attack the Umbrella Company, Lin Yu would not do anything to her first. As a time traveler, Lin Yu naturally knows the strength of Ancient One. On Earth in the Marvel Universe, Gu is probably the most powerful warrior, but Lin Yu had already prepared a way to deal with the Ancient One a long time ago. But Ancient One hasn't given him a chance to use that method yet. This time the Umbrella Company launches a massive attack on Wakanda, and Lin Yu estimates that there is a high possibility that the Ancient One will take action. Although the last time he was in New York, he also dispatched a huge biochemical army, but at that time, it was to deal with Chitauri and protect the Earth. But this time, it was pure aggression. Even if Ancient One intervenes to stop it, Lin Yu will not be surprised. So, when preparing to attack Wakanda, Lin Yu had already made preparations for the arrival of the Ancient One. For Wakanda, Lin Yu is destined to win. Even if Ancient One steps in to stop it, Lin Yu still has to do this. In Wakanda, there are vibranium resources that Lin Yu must obtain. Vibranium is considered a very precious metal in the entire universe. With these vibranium, Lin Yu can better arm his men and provide him with strong support for his future battles in the universe. And Lin Yu never thought of getting those vibranium from Wakanda in a gentle way, because Lin Yu didn't think the other party was willing to share vibranium with him. Rather than wasting time, it's better to grab what you want directly. That's why this army mobilization was launched. The Umbrella Company, if not mobilized, will be protected. As long as it is mobilized, it must move forward. A meadow in southern Africa. A blue portal slowly appeared. Immediately afterwards, in that portal, a group of warriors wearing black combat uniforms walked out. After they came out of the portal, they quickly became vigilant around them. Then, in the portal, there were a large number of black-clothed warriors walking out quickly. On the grass, a neat square array was formed. After all 5,000 Umbrella Company biochemical emergency response troops passed through the portal, they were followed by huge amounts of 10,000 desperate tyrants. Every step they took made the surrounding earth tremble slightly. Then, 200,000 thunder lickers, 300,000 frost hunters, and many biochemical monsters wearing steel armor slowly appeared from the portal. Although the portal this time is much larger than before, it will take at least half an hour for so many troops to pass through. But such a huge army marched without any trace of chaos. Whether it was the armed members of the Umbrella Company or the more than 500,000 biochemical army, they were all arranged in an orderly manner and did not make any unnecessary noise. At the same time, just when the portal appeared and the Umbrella Company's army passed through the portal, in the palace of Wakanda, Okoye, the bald and dark-skinned captain of the royal guard, came to the palace in a hurry. After meeting Chaka, the current king of Wakanda and the father of Black Panther T'Challa, he hurriedly reported, "King, outside the southern defensive shield, an army suddenly appeared. After Okoye heard the news, he immediately came over to report. Therefore, she didn't even see clearly who was coming. After the old King Chaka heard this report, his expression immediately became serious. Since Wakanda was hidden, no one on this earth has ever bothered Wakanda. According to the description of Captain Okoye of the Royal Guard, this army suddenly appeared on the outside of the defensive barrier. It is obviously very likely that it is coming towards Wakanda. Although the old king is very old, he is not confused at all. He hurriedly ordered, "Hurry up and gather all the troops and prepare to meet the enemy. In addition, inform Chala and ask him to meet me in the control room immediately." At the moment, Chala has not yet succeeded to the throne of king. However, he has already inherited the strength of Black Panther. Moreover, I already own the Black Panther battlesuit. In all of Wakanda, his son Chala is considered the strongest warrior. The old King Chaka has long been ready to pass the throne to his son. Now, Wakanda is in crisis, and he must let his son know. Soon, led by Okoye, captain of the palace guard, thousands of Wakanda's most elite warriors gathered in the square in front of the palace, and, under the leadership of Okoye, moved towards the direction of the Umbrella Company army. And this time, Prince Chala also hurried to the control room located inside the palace. This control room is very important in the entire Wakanda, because here you can control all the defense shields around Wakanda. As soon as Chala walked in, he saw his father looking at the picture on the big screen in front of him with a serious expression. Chala's eyes were also attracted by the picture on the big screen. In that screen, the scene of the Umbrella Company's army gathering outside the defense shield was shown. 5,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company, all dressed in black, stood in a square formation with cold faces. Next to them were 10,000 desperate tyrants that were 5 meters tall, each exuding the aura of a wild and ferocious beast. Then, there's a biochemical army of 500,000 passing through the portal and slowly gathering. Seeing this scene, Chala was suddenly shocked. He naturally knows the identities of these biochemical monsters and warriors. Not to mention that those soldiers all have obvious Umbrella Company logos printed on them. Even if there is no logo, Chala has seen on the news the scene of those biochemical monsters hunting aliens during the Battle of New York. As long as they see these biochemical monsters, almost everyone on the Earth knows that they are the research results of the Umbrella Company. The Umbrella Company is not hiding at all. Although Chala has been living in isolation in Wakanda, he is not ignorant. He has always been paying attention to the news from the outside world. Are they an Umbrella Company? Chala asked hurriedly. Although he had recognized the identities of those people and the biochemical monsters, he still didn't believe it. After all, Wakanda and the Umbrella Corporation have nothing to do with each other. At this moment, Old Wong Chaka nodded slowly. He also recognized the identities of these uninvited guests. However, compared to his son Chaka, he was more worried. "Father, why do they come to us?" Chala asked again. Chala seems a little immature now. He hasn't experienced the things that make him more mature. Therefore, he does not need his father's advice on many things. Hearing his son's question, Chala slowly turned around and said solemnly, "What do you think we have here that can attract the Umbrella Company?" Chapter 90, Merging into an Umbrella Company? His father's words made Chala understand immediately. Indeed, as my father said, vibranium is probably the only thing Wakanda can take a fancy to from the Umbrella Company. There are many people on Earth who know about the existence of the metal vibranium, but people don't know that the place with the most vibranium in the world is in Wakanda. Moreover, all of Wakanda's vibranium comes from a huge meteorite that fell to Earth a long time ago, and Wakanda was built on this huge amount of meteorite. Wakanda's vibranium reserves are quite large, and until now, Wakanda itself has not mined a tenth of them. Let's go and see what this Umbrella Company wants to do. Old King Chaka said slowly. At this moment, his slightly stooped back straightened up again. Wakanda, not everyone can be bullied casually. Chala became excited when he saw his father's appearance. When he was young, he didn't like peace. There's even a little bit of desire in my heart. Desire to be able to fight with passion. Looking at his father's back, Chara slowly and hurriedly followed him with an excited look on his face. Soon, the father and son arrived at the southern part of Wakanda's defensive formation. At the moment, they finally saw those terrifying biochemical monsters up close for the first time. It is still very different from what I saw on TV. Seeing it at the scene, there was a powerful impact that shocked the two people's hearts. Whether it's the disgusting lickers or the icy hunters, they all look like a group of evil ghosts that just crawled out of hell, making people shudder. And those 10,000 huge desperate tyrants gave them an even stronger impact. They're about 5 meters tall. Their skin is a bright metallic color, a bit like silver, but with some tiny gray dots. Their explosive muscles can be felt just by looking at them, to the kind of violent aura like a wild beast. In addition to these biochemical monsters, there are also 5,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company. They were neatly arranged in a square formation, looking quietly in front of them without saying a word, not even making a sound. Although they stood beside those biochemical monsters, they were not inferior to those biochemical monsters in terms of momentum. Obviously, they are not ordinary humans. When he saw the arrival of the Umbrella Company's army with his own eyes, King Chaka's face turned gloomy. What I saw on a monitoring screen didn't seem to be that much. And in such a short period of time, countless biochemical monsters came out of the portal. Now, looking around, the outside of the defensive formation is almost completely occupied by these biochemical monsters. Chaka estimates that the number of these biochemical monsters is definitely not less than 300,000. Moreover, it is still increasing. Next to Chaka, the excitement on his son Chala's face gradually disappeared. Although fighting can excite him, the situation does not seem to be an even fight. The total number of our country's troops is only over 2,000. The number of these monsters in front of them is calculated in hundreds of thousands. Father, can we stop them? Chala asked nervously. He was already a little worried in his heart. Hearing his son's question, Chaka narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "Don't worry, we have a defensive shield. No matter how many they have, they can't break through the defense." Wakanda's defensive shield is very strong and is the crystallization of Wakanda's most advanced technology. Although this defensive shield has not experienced the baptism of war since its establishment, as the king of Wakanda, he is still very confident in this defensive shield. 10 minutes later, all the forces of the Umbrella Company finally passed through the portal and came outside the Wakanda defense shield. Chaka also led his soldiers and waited quietly for 10 minutes. They can only wait, because their biggest reliance now is the defense shield outside their own country. If you walk out rashly, it may be difficult to come back. And at the moment, when all the biochemical monsters of the Umbrella Company came out, a figure finally slowly walked out of the portal. It was a young man wearing gray training clothes, with fair complexion and a bald head. He looked about 30 years old. As soon as he appeared, the entire Umbrella Company army became excited. It seems that this man is their spiritual leader. Behind the man, there were two people, a man and a woman. It looks like he is that man's guard. The bald man seemed to have seen the Wakanda army within the defensive formation, and he slowly came to the front of the protective barrier. This scene shocked everyone in Wakanda again. With their protective cover, you can't see what's inside at all from the outside. The outside of the protective shield has high-tech means to simulate the appearance of a forest. Ordinary people can only see a forest and cannot see the hidden city of Wakanda inside. But that man seemed to be able to see things inside the protective shield. Lin Yu could indeed see what was happening inside the formation. After his body had strengthened so many times, his eyes were no longer ordinary eyes. Whether it is the genes of the giants of Jotunheim or the genes of the Acer Protoss, his eyes have become more powerful. At the moment, Lin Yu looked through the defensive shield in front of him and saw the assembled Wakanda army, as well as Chala and his son. At this moment, Lin Yu slowly led his two men, Alice and Weskier, to the edge of the formation. Alice and Weskier haven't seen Wakanda there yet. Although they are very strong, they do not have Lin Yu's ability to see through the defensive shield. But when Lin Yu stretched out a finger and gently poked it in the air in front of him, A ripple suddenly appeared out of thin air and made a difficult sound. Obviously, in front of them, there's an invisible wall. The faces of the two finally showed their original expressions. Only then did they understand that there was something hidden under the scene of this forest. At this time, King Chaka of Wakanda finally understood that the Umbrella Company should really know about Wakanda, and even knew about the defensive shield around Wakanda. He took his son Chala and Captain Okoye of the Royal Guard and walked forward slowly. At the same time, he spoke slowly into the communicator, opened the hidden ability of the Southern Shield. Following Chaka's order, the protective shield in front of Lin Yu and others suddenly flashed a light. Then, Alice and Weskier also saw the scene inside the protective shield. In front of us is not a forest, but a prairie. On the flat grassland, thousands of warriors armed with spears and scimitars have gathered. They formed a square formation on the grassland, seeming to be quietly waiting for the arrival of the Umbrella Company. Behind them, a huge city, which looked full of science fiction, stood quietly on the earth. Alice and Weskier's eyes suddenly lit up. It turns out, is this the real Wakanda that the boss said? At this moment, King Chaka of Wakanda finally arrived not far from Lin Yu and the others. They slowly stopped and looked directly at Lin Yu, the boss of the Umbrella Company, in front of them. Chaka's face looked calm, but Chala and Okoye looked a little nervous. At the moment, Chaka took the lead and said, "Friends have come from afar. Don't you know what's going on?" Chaka doesn't want to fight Umbrella. Therefore, his tone sounded relatively mild. Lin Yu, on the other hand, smiled softly and said in a gentler tone, "Take your country and merge it into the Umbrella Company, and we will provide you with protection." Chapter 91, A Violent Start. Lin Yu's first words made the expressions of Chaka, his son, and Royal Guard Captain Okoye change drastically. Although Lin Yu looked very calm, even with a smile on his face. However, what he said was extremely arrogant. However, this is the confidence of the Umbrella Company, and it is also the most kind way of speaking that Lin Yu thinks. For Wakanda's vibranium, Lin Yu is bound to get it. But Lin Yu is not a murderer, and there is no need to kill all the people of Wakanda. As long as they are willing to submit to themselves and make the entire Wakanda a part of the Umbrella Company, Lin Yu will not take action against them. But these words seemed a bit harsh to Chalia's ears. Although he was a little shocked by the strength of the Umbrella Company, he has always been confident about the strength of Wakanda and himself. Before his father, Chaka, could say anything, Chala took a step forward and said coldly, "You are dreaming. If you can, just have a good fight." Upon hearing Chalia's words, his father Chaka hurriedly pulled him back. This son is indeed too simple. Being slightly provoked by the enemy's words, it is no longer possible to maintain a stable mentality. It does require some experience. Pulling his son back, Chaka also took a step forward. He looked directly into Lin Yu's eyes and said slowly, "You should be the boss of the Umbrella Company, right?" Lin Yu nodded slightly, still calm. And Chaka said again, "I'm afraid it's not feasible to merge Wakanda into the Umbrella Company. After all, you're just a company, and we, Wakanda, are a country. I have only heard that companies are dependent on the country, and I have never heard that the country can merge into the company." Chaka seems very calm. After all, he has sat in the position of king of Wakanda for decades, so he still has this sense of stability. At the moment, hearing Chaka's words, Lin Yu's face showed a smile again. The Umbrella Company is completely different from other companies. Our target will be the entire universe. And do you think the company that controls the entire universe cannot accommodate your little Wakanda? Hearing this, Chaka obviously didn't believe it. The strength of the Umbrella Company seems indeed very strong. But saying that the target is the entire universe is indeed a bit of a stretch. No, the cowhide was blown to the sky. Even with Wakanda's current technological level, there is no way to go to space. And the Umbrella Company, a biopharmaceutical company, actually dared to say that it wanted to control the entire universe. It's simply a shameless statement. But although Chaka thought this in his heart, he still seemed very polite when he spoke. "We, Wakanda, are a helping country and do not want to participate in secular battles. I hope you can understand, Chalice said with a smile. He even used honorific words for someone younger than him. I really don't want to start a war. But Lin Yu ran out of patience. And Lin Yu also knew long ago that Wakanda could not surrender to him before the war started. He just upheld the traditional Chinese etiquette first and then attack. If politeness is of no use, then there is no choice but to go to war. Lin Yu raised the corners of his mouth slightly, stretched out 3 fingers, and said slowly, "Then I will give you 3 minutes to think about it. If you are still stubborn, then let's start the battle." Hearing Lin use arrogant words, even Chaka frowned. His son Chala and Royal Guard Captain Okoye's expressions were even uglier. It seems that a war is inevitable. Chaka said no more. He turned around and walked toward the back. He felt that there was no need to communicate anymore. Returning to his army, Chaka still felt that it was not enough. He said to the captain of the Royal Guards, Okoye, "Go to the White Ape tribe and tell their leader M'Baku the current situation. It is related to Wakanda's survival. I believe he will not ignore it." After hearing the king's order, Okoye's face changed drastically. Although the White Ape clan also lives in Wakanda, they're completely opposed to the Black Panther clan. And it's still a feud. "Your Majesty, may they come to help us?" Okoye asked worriedly. However, Chaka said with certainty, "Don't worry. If Wakanda is destroyed, they will definitely not be spared. They will come." Okoye could only turn around and get on a flight machine and fly towards the snow-capped mountains nearby. The White Ape clan has always lived on that snow mountain. Their fighting power is also quite strong. Especially M'Baku, the leader of the White Ape clan, is an extremely powerful warrior. At this moment, King Chaka of Wakanda came to the forefront of his army, in front of the country's military minister Wakabi, and said, "Call your rhino troops over. I'm afraid this will be a difficult battle." Wakanda's military minister Wakabi is not only the commander-in-chief of the army, he is also a legendary breeder. The rhinoceros he raised is the most powerful alien species in Wakanda. Moreover, the rhino's body is covered with armor made of vibranium, which is extremely powerful. Every impact will cause terrifying destructive power. Upon hearing the king's order, Wakabi picked up the whistle around his neck and blew it. Not long after, the ground began to tremble violently. A group of rhinos wearing vibranium armor ran from the depths of the mountains. All the soldiers in Wakanda's army raised one of their arms. On their robes, the vibranium device burst out with a blue light, and then countless energy shields appeared at the same time. They have taken a defensive stance, and at the moment, Chala even transformed directly, put on a Black Panther battle suit, and shouted, "Wakanda Bam," meaning Wakanda must win. Wakanda has given up preparations for the battle. Even the old king is ready to participate in this battle. However, he was forcefully dragged back to his palace by the royal guards behind him. After all, he is too old. Even if he has a Black Panther battle suit, his body can no longer withstand too much damage. Outside the defensive shield, the Umbrella Company's army has been completely assembled. Seeing that King Chaka of Wakanda had retreated, Lin Yu also understood that it was time to fight. Lin Yu also took Weskier and Alice and walked back to the rear. In a battle of this scale, Lin Yu didn't need to take action at all. Even Alice and Weskier don't need to leave the country. What they need is just to be the commander-in-chief and dispatch their troops. A large soft sofa was placed behind Lin Yu at some point. Lin Yu sat gently on it and narrowed his eyes comfortably. Alice and Weskier automatically stood around Lin Yu. At this moment, 10,000 desperate tyrants took the lead and walked forward slowly. They will be the first wave of biochemical soldiers to appear, and their function is to break open the protective shield in front of you. In fact, Lin Yu has a better way to break this protective shield, because Lin Yu can use the Tesseract to sneak directly into Wakanda and destroy their control room. However, Lin Yu did not do this. This is the first real confrontation between the two armies that Umbrella Company has participated in, and there will definitely be more such battles in the future. Therefore, Lin Yu doesn't want to take any chances. This time, in addition to controlling Wakanda and getting vibranium, Lin Yu has another purpose. That is, training. 10,000 desperate tyrants stood side by side about 100 meters in front of the protective shield. They were arranged in 2 rows side by side. Then, under Lin Yu's order, the 2 desperate tyrants at the front suddenly exerted force on their feet, put one shoulder in front, and ran towards the protective shield. These desperate tyrants, or rather Lin Yu, are actually preparing to use brute force to break through this defensive barrier. Chapter 92, the 2 armies are fighting. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire protective shield of Wakanda shook violently. Not only that, even the ground under Chala's feet shook slightly. The 2 huge amounts of monsters hit the protective shield at the same time. The force of the countershock even turned the shoulders of the 2 desperate tyrants into a bloody mess instantly. Seeing this scene, Shirla suddenly showed a touch of excitement on his face. If the other party does this, it should be good news for Wakanda. They actually wanted to use brute force to break through the protective shield, which was completely out of the blue. And, in just the first collision, they lost 2 major combat forces. If it continues, the strength of the Umbrella Company will definitely not become weaker and weaker. When more combat power is lost in the collision with the protective shield, the balance of strength on both sides will tilt towards Wakanda's side. At the same time, in the control room of Wakanda's palace, King T'Chaka also felt the slight shaking under his feet. 350 felt the terrifying power of those 2 monsters, and he was slightly surprised. These monsters not only look strong on the outside, but their true power is even more terrifying than they look on the outside. T'Chaka hurriedly asked the staff next to him, "How is the damage to the protective shield?" As the king, T'Chaka has a certain understanding of everything in Wakanda, and naturally knows the weaknesses of the protective shield. At this time, the staff on the side hurriedly replied, "Your Majesty the King, the energy damage of the protective shield is 0.01%, and it is estimated that it can withstand such attacks 10,000 times. The degree of damage does not seem to be high." But, hearing the staff's answer, T'Chaka suddenly became worried. What he is most worried about is the damage to the protective shield. If the damage is too serious in this impact, then he will probably have to think of other plans. But this kind of damage has exceeded T'Chaka's expectations. According to the current situation, if the opponent is really prepared to sacrifice all those huge monsters, plus the attacks of some other monsters, it is very likely that the protection will be completely broken. Although the Umbrella Company will lose a lot of combat effectiveness as a result, then its own army will have to go head-to-head with the Umbrella Company. The Umbrella Company has too many troops. Even if half of them are sacrificed, I am afraid that our side will still be at a disadvantage. Looking at the big screen in front of him, King T'Chaka frowned, thinking about how to deal with this situation. But that's when a staff member seemed to have suddenly discovered something, pointing to a place on the screen, and exclaimed. King T'Chaka also hurriedly followed the man's hand and looked at the big screen in front of him. North time. In the big screen, the 2 biochemical monsters that had just hit the protective shield and had their shoulders almost shattered had unexpected changes. Their shoulders, which had been completely scrapped, actually emitted a fiery red light, just like the color of magma. Immediately afterwards, under T'Chaka's incredible eyes, the 2 biochemical monsters recovered as before. Their shoulders have completely recovered. How is this possible? T'Chaka exclaimed. Suffering such serious injuries, under normal circumstances, they would lose more than half of their combat effectiveness, and they would not even be able to participate in the next battle. However, they recovered instantly. What a terrible ability this is. T'Chaka suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. The Umbrella Company is more terrifying than I imagined. They dare to let those monsters hit their protective shields. Not because they can sacrifice those monsters, but because those monsters will not be hurt at all. At this time, boom! The 2 huge figures once again hit the spot where the protective shield had been hit before. The earth shook. In the control room, T'Chaka also felt the slight shaking again. Boom! Another crash. The desperate tyrants lined up in 2 teams and collided seamlessly. The ground trembled, and the light on the defense shield was constantly flashing. Before Chaka could figure out how to respond, he heard the report from his subordinates again. Your Majesty the King, it's bad. They all hit at the same location. The energy emperor who protects against electricity is falling faster. As it hits the same position of the protective shield again and again, the light on the protective shield slowly fades. Chaka finally realized the seriousness of the problem. He hurriedly picked up the communicator and said to Chala, "Son, get ready to face the enemy. The protective shield will not last long." Upon hearing his father's words, Chala's expression changed drastically. He had just been stunned by the powerful recovery capabilities of those biochemical monsters. But fortunately, the protection review seemed to be relatively stable. However, I didn't expect that under the impact of those monsters, the protective shield would be unable to hold up. Everything seems to be developing in a bad direction. But fortunately, it didn't take long for the White Ape clan to arrive here under the leadership of their leader M'Baku. There are not many of them, only a few hundred, but each one is very strong. The White Ape family lives in the snow-capped mountains and relies on hunting for a living. Each one of them is born with supernatural powers. Although M'Baku disliked the Black Panther family, when he saw the terrifying biochemical army outside the protective shield, he couldn't help but feel a shiver in his heart. Those biochemical armies look really terrifying. And M'Baku also saw the protective shield being hit again and again for the first time. M'Baku asked solemnly, "How long can the protective shield last?" On the side, Chala, who didn't expect M'Baku to take the initiative to talk to him, was slightly startled, but then he replied, "I guess he won't last long." Although there's a hostile relationship between the two groups, they now have to unite to protect Wakanda and resist the Umbrella Company's army. Hearing Chala's answer, M'Baku's face turned ugly again. Finally, with the collision of the desperate tyrant, the color of the energy shield also became lighter and lighter. In the control room, the staff said to King Chaka, "Your Majesty, the energy remaining is only 3%. If the protective shield is not removed, the protective shield will be completely destroyed." 3. Chaka's face darkened. This was much faster than I expected. But he had to make a decision. If the protective shield is smashed, it will probably be completely scrapped. "Remove it," Chaka ordered helplessly. He seemed to have seen the end coming. "Even if it's not the end of the world, I'm afraid it will be the cruelest disaster in history for Wakanda." Immediately afterwards, Chaka said to all the soldiers and his son through the communicator, "The energy of the protective shield is exhausted. Let's fight." Following Chaka's order, the protective shield finally slowly disappeared. And at the moment, Chala shouted, "Wakanda forever," meaning Wakanda hail. The entire army shouted, "Wakanda forever," and the Umbrella Company sighed 4.4. Lin Yu also issued the last order to the biochemical army of more than 500,000 people. "Fight!" 500,000 biochemical troops swarmed forward. At the same time, just when the war between Umbrella Corporation and Wakanda just started. Far away in Kathmandu in the Himalayas, Kamar Taj, the ancient one magician who was meditating quietly, suddenly opened his eyes. She seemed to feel something. The expression is a little tangled. But then, he seemed to understand something and then stood up slowly. "Modu, you will teach your juniors first. I will go out and be back soon," Ancient One Magician said to his eldest disciple, Modu. Then, she gently raised her hand and drew a circular pattern in front of herself. A portal appeared in front of her. Then, with a gentle step, he walked in. Through the portal, you can see that there seems to be a forest on the opposite side. Chapter 93. Slap Black Panther away on the battlefield. The armies on both sides all started running. On the Wakanda side, Chala, wearing a Black Panther battle suit, leads the way. Behind him, Okoye, captain of the Wakanda Royal Guard, followed with a spear. Then there is M'Baku, the leader of the White Ape clan, and Wakabi, the military minister of Wakanda. But, just as everyone was rushing forward, dozens of rhinos suddenly rushed out from the right side of Wakanda's army. They were covered in armor made of vibranium, and each one was extremely strong, even directly surpassing Black Panther Chala, and rushed towards the Umbrella Company's army. As for the Umbrella Company, at the front are 10,000 desperate tyrants. Compared to the Wakanda army, the momentum of these 10,000 desperate tyrants can completely defeat them. The speed of Desperate Tyrant is also quite fast. They can move more than 10 meters with each step, and every time their footsteps fall on the ground, they can leave a big hole in the ground. After the Desperate Tyrant, there are 300,000 Frost Hunters and 200,000 Thunderlickers. Their speed is also not slow, rushing towards the enemy all over the mountains and plains. In the sky, there is also the biochemical army of the Umbrella Company. Some biochemical monsters that had put on steel battle suits flew into the Sky 14. In the sky, swooped towards the enemy. Behind these biochemical troops are the 5,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company who have been injected with the G virus. Under Weskier's order, they deliberately slowed down some speed, although they want to rush forward and fight immediately to test their current strength. However, Linyu does not want any armed member of the Umbrella Company to die. Compared to these loyal subordinates, those cloned biochemical monsters don't matter. No matter how much Linyu dies, he won't feel any pain at all. At the moment, in the control room of the Wakanda Palace, King Chaka was nervously looking at the picture on his big screen. On the screen in front of him, he saw a more comprehensive situation. The Umbrella Company team looked like a huge amount of dark clouds. As for our own side, although the entire army has been mobilized and there is help from the White Ape clan, compared with the team of the Umbrella Company, they are like a little crow rushing towards the dark clouds. No matter in terms of momentum or quantity, they are not proportional. Chaka's palms and forehead were already sweating. His mood was extremely tense. In this kind of battle, you can guess the outcome without even thinking. Although Wakanda's technology is very advanced, it is not very strong in terms of weapons and equipment. The biochemical monsters on the other side look like they were born just for fighting, and at the moment, just when Chaka was thinking about what he should do. In the screen, the two parties finally came into contact. The first ones to collide were the dozens of rhinos covered in vibranium armor and the desperate tyrants of the Umbrella Company. Those rhinos seemed to weigh about the same as desperate tyrants. But when colliding together, everyone on the Wakanda side finally discovered to their horror that those rhinos were no match for the desperate tyrant. One-on-one, he is no match at all. Every rhinoceros faces a desperate tyrant. However, the rhinoceros, which originally seemed to have a strong impact, was knocked directly into the air by the tyrant. As for the tyrants who collided with the rhino, their bodies were not affected at all, and they continued to rush forward. This scene made everyone in Wakanda look stupid, especially Wakabi, who feeds these rhinos. He knows the power of these rhinos best. However, he did not expect that these rhinos, which were originally extremely strong, would be knocked directly into the air. Obviously, not only are these rhinos incomparable in terms of strength, but even their weight is definitely far behind those monsters. At this time, everyone in Wakanda finally understood that their enemies seemed to be more terrifying than they imagined. But it was only then that I realized it, and it seemed to be too late. Dozens of rhinos that were knocked away fell from the sky. In an instant, dozens of Vacan soldiers were killed or wounded. But begin. Black Panther T'Challa was the first to encounter those desperate tyrants. He suddenly jumped directly onto the shoulders of a tyrant. Sharp claws instantly appeared on both of his hands. Immediately afterwards, T'Challa's two leopard claws stabbed the tyrant in the head. But when his hand came into contact with the tyrant's skin, he was even more horrified to discover that the skin of these biochemical monsters seemed to be so hard that it was scary. His claws can even scratch their skin with difficulty. And, just after leaving a few wounds on the tyrant's face, a fiery red light suddenly appeared in those wounds, and they recovered immediately. T'Challa was momentarily confused. However, the tyrant was not idle. His big hands grabbed T'Challa's body from behind, while T'Challa was hesitating. A terrifying force instantly spread throughout T'Challa's body. Under this powerful force, T'Challa's Black Panther battlesuit seemed to be slightly unable to withstand it. Bloodshot eyes suddenly appeared in his eyes. The bones all over the body are cracking. Black Panther was terrified. Just being caught by this monster was already a bit unbearable for him. The Black Panther battle suit on his body has all turned purple. It is a move specially created to absorb and release energy using the characteristics of vibranium energy absorbing. He released this skill without any hesitation. A purple light, centered on Black Panther, was released. Although this energy did not cause much damage to the tyrant, Black Panther also used the power of this energy burst to break free from the tyrant's hands. But immediately afterwards, before his body landed in the sky, another tyrant slapped him on the body. Boom! Black Panther T'Challa. The Black Panther battle suit on his body instantly turned purple. Then it shattered inch by inch. A large mouthful of blood mixed with internal organs suddenly popped out of his mouth, flying towards the distance. It flew hundreds of meters away before falling to the ground. If the Black Panther battlesuit hadn't withstood most of the force, T'Challa would have been slapped to death in an instant. But even so, his condition was quite miserable. Most of the bones in his body were broken, and his internal organs were also severely damaged. He rolled his eyes and fainted. In the Marvel movie world, Black Panther's strength is not originally very strong. Moreover, he is still a bit young now. In addition, he was stunned for a moment by the defensive power of the desperate tyrant and was accidentally caught in the hands of the desperate tyrant, which led to his instant defeat. But Black Panther's instant defeat caused the morale of the entire Wakanda army to plummet to the bottom. After all, in the eyes of Wakanda's soldiers, Black Panther is invincible. And the invincible Black Panther was slapped by that monster, and his life or death was uncertain. The most terrifying thing is that that kind of monster has been published on the internet. How can we fight this battle? The speed of Wakanda's soldiers instantly slowed down a lot, because they discovered that this was not a battle between two armies at all, but that they were dying. In the control room of Wakanda Palace, when he saw his son being slapped away and falling to the ground without knowing whether he was alive or dead, the old king, T'Chaka, suddenly trembled in his heart. He suddenly felt that he seemed to have made a very bad decision. Wakanda is definitely no match for Umbrella Corporation. I should have agreed to their conditions just now. Compared with the lives of his son and countless people of Wakanda, joining the Umbrella Corporation is nothing. And after seeing the power of the Umbrella Company, T'Chaka seemed to understand that the boss of the Umbrella Company just said that their target is the entire universe, which seems to be true. Their strength makes it impossible to find opponents on Earth. TJ, I must make a decision as soon as possible. Otherwise, your own people will only suffer more casualties. T'Chaka made his decision in a split second. He hurriedly ran out of the control room, then boarded a Wakanda-specific flight machine, took off, and flew in the direction of Linyu. On the flight machine, T'Chaka stood at the front, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. Chapter 94, The Ancient One Magician Came from Afar. Alice was the first to see King T'Chaka of Wakanda. Her eyes lit up. She pointed in the direction where T'Chaka came from, and hurriedly said to Linyu, "Boss, look." Linyu also looked in the direction Alice pointed, and then a smile suddenly appeared on his face. But there was a hint of coldness in this smile. "You know how to surrender now. Don't you think it's a little late?" Linyu thought to himself. And at the moment, on the battlefield, the Umbrella Corporation's biological army has come into full contact with Wakanda's military. Suddenly, Wakanda's army collapsed instantly. Neither the Wakanda Royal Guard nor the powerful White Apes can compete with the Umbrella Company's biochemical army, not even qualified to fight. The instant collision caused heavy losses to Wakanda's army. And immediately afterwards, the Frost Hunters and Thunder Lickers behind the desperate tyrant rushed forward. Although their combat power does not seem to be as powerful as the desperate tyrants, their speed is faster. The number is really terrifying. All you can see is a black mass of monsters, which will directly overwhelm the entire Wakanda army. And at the same time, King T'Chaka of Wakanda, who was rushing towards Linyu on the flight machine, was even more anxious. The flight machine under his feet accelerated again, and in less than 10 seconds, it arrived in front of Linyu. After stopping, he hurriedly jumped off the aircraft. They were still dozens of meters away from Linyu, so he ran and shouted loudly, "We surrender. admit defeat, and are willing to submit to the Umbrella Company. If there was a white flag in his hand at this time, he would definitely wave it vigorously. At this moment, Alice next to Lin Yu suddenly asked, "Boss, should we stop the fighting first?" Alice felt that since the other party had surrendered, why fight? But Lin Yu shook his head slightly. "I'm not a bad person, but sometimes I have to be a bad person. I've already given the other party a chance, but the other party refused so simply. Now, the battle has begun, and countless Wakanda people have died in the hands of their own biological army. Hatred has been established. Even if they accept the other party's surrender now, I'm afraid the hatred in their hearts cannot be extinguished. Rather than recruiting a group of guys who have a hatred for Umbrella Corporation, it would be better to just get rid of them all. I would rather let the world down, and the world let me down. Recruiting a group of people who have hatred for the Umbrella Company will not only be harmful to themselves, but also may become a future disaster for the employees of the Umbrella Company." At this moment, Chaka has arrived in front of Lin Yu. He knelt down without any hesitation. A king can kneel in front of his enemies, which shows that he still cares about his people very much. He also began to beg for mercy. While begging Lin Yu, he had been watching the situation on the battlefield with the corner of his eye. "The more I looked, the more anxious I became. Those on the battlefield are Wakanda's most elite warriors. They were all ready to die in battle. But the death of every soldier made Chaka's heart bleed. But at this moment, Lin Yu shook his head and said slowly, "I have given you a chance, but you didn't grasp it. Now you want to join the Umbrella Company. Don't you think it's a little late?" Lin Yu's words instantly changed Chaka's expression. As a wise king, he also understood what Lin Yu meant. Indeed, it's too late. So many people have died now, and these people all have family and friends. Even I am afraid that I can't stop these people's family and friends from hating the Umbrella Company. It is indeed impossible to join an Umbrella Company now. The other party will never allow them to join." Chaka suddenly seemed to have lost all his strength and instantly became much older. In his heart, he felt extremely regretful. Why didn't I talk to the boss of the Umbrella Company before, and then understand the true strength of the Umbrella Company, and then consider whether to start a war? Why is this reckless? Wakanda has been going smoothly over the years, and has always been more technologically advanced than the outside world, allowing itself to expand. This current disaster is all our own fault. Chaka burst into tears. He finally begged, "I already understand, but I only have one request in the end. Those people in the city, they are innocent. Please don't kill them." Chaka knew that such a request had little chance of success. But for the sake of his own people, he had to give it a try. But Lin Yu unexpectedly nodded slowly. "I won't kill them, but they won't stay on Earth anymore." Lin Yu actually didn't want to kill those ordinary people. Kill those Wakanda warriors, just because this is a war and death is inevitable. However, Lin Yu will not do unnecessary killing, even though those people may hate themselves. But Lin Yu will not let himself become a pure murderer. Hate it if you hate it. Anyway, you still have your own Umbrella Company, and it will become stronger and stronger, so strong that no one could do anything but surrender. Moreover, Lin Yu has already thought about how to deal with these people of Wakanda. With the Tesseract, it is very simple for Lin Yu to send some people away from the Earth. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Chaka hurriedly thanked him, and Lin Yu said again, "However, your life cannot be kept." After speaking, Lin Yu winked at Weskier beside him. Weskier understood and walked forward. The king of Wakanda, Black Panther's father, finally died in this war. At the moment, the battle on the battlefield is coming to an end. Before the members of the Umbrella Company's Biochemical Emergency Response Force even had time to take action, the biochemical army was completely overwhelmed by Wakanda's army. 500,000 people against several thousand people was simply a one-sided massacre. What's more, the individual combat effectiveness of this 500,000-strong army is stronger than the opponents. But just as the Umbrella Company soldiers on the battlefield were cleaning up the mess, the biochemical army was gathering again. Lin Yu suddenly felt something, turned his head slightly, and looked behind him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, because he finally saw that familiar figure. A woman in yellow robes with a yellow hood on her head, whose bare head can still be faintly seen. The Ancient One, the only sorcerer supreme on Earth, is finally here. Moreover, he still chose to come to Linyu, Hada Zhao, when the Umbrella Company was at war with Wakanda. But when he saw Linyu, Ancient One's expression suddenly turned serious. She has lived for countless years, but she has never seen anyone like Linyu. Her eyes can see many things that ordinary people cannot see through. But he couldn't see through Lin Yu's terrifyingly powerful body. At the same time, it is even more difficult to see through Lin Yu's soul. Ancient One walked slowly towards Lin Yu, taking off her hood as she walked, revealing her bald head. Lin Yu also stood up and stepped forward to greet him. The two most powerful bald men on Earth finally faced each other for the first time. But the expressions of the two were completely different. The Ancient One magician looked solemn and seemed to have too many doubts about Lin Yu. And Lin Yu, with a smile on his face, seemed to have everything under control. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu took the lead and said with a smile, "The Ancient One magician came from afar, and he was greeted at a distance." Chapter 95. Lin Yu takes full action for the first time. Hearing Lin Yu's words, the Ancient One magician's body paused slightly. It seemed that the boss of the Umbrella Company was a little surprised that he knew his name. Quite unexpected indeed. Ancient One magician rarely interacts with the outside world. He usually lives in seclusion in Kamartaj and rarely comes out. Even if he comes out, he only secretly protects the Earth. It is impossible for ordinary people to know their own names. But the person in front of me actually knows him. It seems that the other party is indeed no ordinary person. I didn't expect that you actually knew me. The Ancient One magician's expression gradually calmed down a lot. Lin Yu smiled slightly and said again, "Ancient One magician has silently guarded the Earth for so many years, and you deserve to be remembered as a famous minister by the world." Lin Yu's words once again shocked Ancient One silently. Not only does he know his name, but he also knows other things about himself. But this is not a serious problem. Ancient One magician once accepted many disciples, some of whom were unwilling to become magicians in the end because one did not force them. Those people have returned to human society again. As for the Umbrella Company, its power in human society is so great that it is not particularly difficult to find information about itself. 967. The only thing that confused Ancient One was that he didn't understand why the other party paid attention to him. "Is it possible? You knew I would come to find you?" Ancient One asked coldly. If you can even count this opponent, then the opponent will be too terrifying. However, Lin Yu did not follow the answer to Ancient One's question. Lin Yu has often imagined the scene when he saw the Ancient One. But what he never thought was that it would come so late. At this time, I already have very strong power. Even when facing Ancient One, the most powerful guy on Earth, Lin Yu no longer had the slightest fear in his heart. But Lin Yu actually has a hint of fighting intention in his heart now. When such a powerful guy appears in front of him, isn't it just an opportunity to test his true strength? I have long heard that the Ancient One magician's spells are extremely powerful, but why are you here? A sneer suddenly appeared on Lin Qi's face. The blood all over his body seemed to be boiling. The fighting spirit in my heart is constantly rising. This sentence was deliberately asked by him. The reason why I get straight to the point is that I want to fight Ancient One as soon as possible to test my strength. Gu Beck, magician, was also slightly startled. He had already noticed that the other party seemed a little too excited and seemed to want to have a fight with him. But I am not here to fight with the opponent. Ancient One frowned slightly and said slowly, "Your Excellency's style is too flamboyant, so I hope you can stop and don't make the Earth a mess." The Ancient One didn't care that the king of Wakanda and those soldiers were killed. To her, the death of a few people on Earth is nothing. However, what she is worried about is that the Umbrella Company has spread all the wars on the entire Earth and caused chaos, which is not conducive to the steady development of the Earth. Lin Yu sneered again and said, "You are too lenient. I think you should just guard your 3 holy places honestly. For other things, you should not meddle too much." Ancient One has never encountered anyone who dared to talk to him like this. The ball man in front of me is really too arrogant. Even Ancient One's calm character became a little angry. She has noticed that the other party seems to be deliberately irritating her. But the Sorcerer Supreme, Ancient One, has lived for countless years. But he also understands that often if you want others to listen to you, you must first show your strength. This world is essentially a world of the weak and the strong. Only what the strong say will be respected. At this moment, a golden light suddenly appeared on Ancient One's hand. The energy of magic has been condensed in her hands. As the only Sorcerer Supreme on Earth and a magician who has lived for countless years, she has mastered many spells. The magical energy can be defended at any time. It seems that you can't wait to fight me. Ancient One said coldly. She didn't think so. I've called you first, and I'll talk about it later. And at the moment, after hearing the Ancient One's words, the corners of Lin Yu's mouth had also curled up. His body suddenly tensed up, his hands clenched into fists, and powerful force suddenly erupted in his legs. Lin Yu's legs hidden under his pants flashed a trace of green, which was the Hulk gene at work. Moreover, outside the green, there's also a faint flash of thunder, which was Thor's thunder power, increasing his speed and explosive power. On Lin Yu's clenched fists, the joints began to protrude slightly and became extremely aggressive. That was the gene of hatred, which instantly turned the bones in Lin Yu's fists into powerful weapons. Lin Yu's eyes also became a little brighter, and the figure of the Ancient One became clearer in his sight. That is the vision-enhancing effect brought to him by Hawkeye's genes. A powerful psychokinesis also appeared in Lin Yu's brain, attached to his body, greatly increasing Lin Yu's speed. That is the psychokinesis ability brought by Alice's genes. At the same time, there were also enhancements brought by various other genes, all of which exploded in Lin Yu's body. After traveling to this world, Lin Yu used his full strength for the first time. It is a power beyond the limits of the physical body. No matter it is the Aesir clan, or the Hulk, or even the body of the powerful Titan clan, I am afraid that it cannot compare. Alice and Weskier beside Lin Yu only heard an explosion-like sound, and their bosses disappeared from their eyes. All that was left was a huge amount of deep pits in the ground. Their eyes suddenly widened with disbelief on their faces. Even they didn't expect their boss to be so powerful. After being injected with the T-virus and G-virus, their eyesight was enhanced many times, but they still couldn't see the boss clearly. And at the moment, in the sight of Ancient One, Lin Yu's figure was like a cannonball, crossing a distance of more than 10 meters in an instant. Ancient One looked shocked. A touch of fear suddenly appeared in her heart. Ancient One directly used all the magical energy in his hands for defense without any hesitation. In front of her, 5 magic shields appeared side by side in an instant. Each of those magic shields was about the height of a person, shining with dazzling light. After using these magic shields, Ancient One was still a little worried. With a gentle push of her hand, a wall that looked like it was made of broken mirrors appeared in front of her. This is one of the most mysterious skills of magicians, mirror space. Mirror space has many uses, but now, the mirror space wall in front of her is completely used as a shield. The wall of the mirror space can almost be regarded as a small space barrier. Very hard. Even the Ancient One himself cannot break the wall of the mirror space. With 5 shields and a wall of seen space juxtaposed in front of the Ancient One, she finally felt a little more relieved. And at the moment, Lin Yu's figure has arrived in front of the first layer of shield. Chapter 96 missiles aimed at Kamartaj since seeing the arrival of Ancient One. Lin Yu has been gathering his momentum. Until Lin Yu took action instantly, his momentum reached its peak. All the strength and ability in the body finally converged into this indomitable punch. This is Lin Yu's strongest punch. It's also a battle between flesh and magic. The appearance of Ancient One did not give any prompt to the system. This means that Ancient One's body is not very strong. In other words, it has not reached the point where the system takes it seriously. All her strength lies in her magical attainments. Although magic is changeable and has many methods, under Lin Yu's rapid punch, she had no time to use those fancy methods. I can only use my strongest defense ability. At this moment, Lin Yu's fist finally touched the magic shield. What shocked Ancient One was that under Lin Yu's punch, his magic shield was as fragile as a piece of paper. Boom! The first magic shield shattered. But this was not over yet. Lin Yu's speed was not affected at all, and his fist was still moving forward rapidly. Boom! The second and third paths were also broken. The look on Ancient One's face made Euron panic. However, it was too late for her to make any moves now. We can only hope for the magic shield behind and the defense of the mirror space. Boom! There were two voices again. The last two magic arrays turned into sparks all over the sky and scattered under Lin Yu's fist. At the moment, there is only the mirror space barrier between Lin Yu's fist and Ancient One's body. That is the Ancient One's strongest defense. Ancient One's eyes have reflected Lin Yu's fist behind the mirror space. That fist, after breaking 5 magic shields, was unscathed. Boom! The entire sky shook violently. Lin Yu's fist finally hit the last line of defense in front of Ancient One. A wave of air, centered on Lin Yu's fist, spread out in all directions. The bodies of Alice and Weskier, not far behind Lin Yu, were shaking a little. The surrounding big trees even made a clattering sound. Immediately after this violent explosion, Ancient One heard a crisp sound in his ears. Kaka! Her face turned ugly again. In front of her, there was a crack in the mirror space barrier that she had never seen anyone be able to break. The location of the crack, with Lin Yu's fist as the center, quickly spread to the surrounding areas. Just like a spider web, it spread to the entire mirror space barrier in less than a blink of an eye. Then, the entire mirror space barrier shattered in front of the Ancient One. Like glass, it shattered all over the place. And Lin Yu's fist finally appeared in front of the Ancient One. A strong wind blew by, causing the Ancient One's face to shape-shift. It was also difficult to open her 2 eyes. But she still resisted closing her eyes, because Lin Yu's fist had stopped less than 10 centimeters in front of her. At the last critical moment, Lin Yu stopped his attack. Ancient One could even see blood slowly flowing down Lin Yu's fist. In the collision just now, no matter how hard Lin Yu's skin was, it was scratched by the force of the mirror space barrier breaking. However, the scratches are only on the skin and do not affect the combat effectiveness. And those small wounds are emitting terrifying high temperatures. And in the sight of the Ancient One, they are all recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Time seems to be frozen at this moment. Ancient One still stood there, the panic on his face slowly dissipating. Lin Yu, on the other hand, still kept punching forward with an inexplicable smile on his face. A dozen meters away behind Lin Yu, Alice and Weskier stared blankly at their boss's arrogant appearance, with their mouths slightly open and their hearts filled with shock. Lin Yu slowly retracted his fist. It was as if I had just done an insignificant thing. The Ancient One, however, still stood there, with the panic on his face finally turning into relief. The fight just now, although it was very fast, only had one move. But the Ancient One has seen Lin Yu's power. If Lin Yu hadn't stopped just now, he would definitely have his head smashed by a punch. That punch was really too strong. That was the strongest punch the Ancient One had ever seen. Not only on Earth, but probably in other universes, few people can block Lin Yu's punch. Those who lose are convinced. The Ancient One is not a competitive person. If it were another person, he might still find an excuse to say that he was not ready or something. But Ancient One is different. She has seen through many things when she was young. She understood that if it happened again, it would probably end like this again. Although the spell has many changes, in the face of absolute power, those so-called changes are of no use at all. And Lin Yu is not just a brute force. When Lin Yu punched just now, the Ancient One could clearly see the changes on his body. Even Lin Yu's invisible psychokinesis, Ancient One can be vaguely aware of it. The most important thing is that Lin Yu was able to take back such a powerful punch in the end. It can be seen that his body has become so strong that he is completely unafraid of backlash. Under normal circumstances, if this kind of attack is forced to stop, it will definitely cause great damage to the body. However, looking at Lin Yu's current situation, there is no harm at all. Coupled with the instant recovery of the small wounds on his fist that he saw just now, Ancient One has completely understood Lin Yu's power. If you lose, you lose. You are very strong, stronger than any humanoid creature I have ever encountered. Ancient One soon returned to his previous calm. Even if she fails, she is still the powerful Sorcerer Supreme. It's just that there is one more existence that cannot be defeated. You are so strong that my fists were injured. Lin Yu replied with a smile. Lin Yu was indeed telling the truth. His fists were hard to get hurt. However, these words sounded a bit Versailles to Ancient One's ears. Ancient One shook his head helplessly, and then his face became solemn again. Although I failed, I still want to remind you that as an Earthling, you should not make the Earth such a mess. There are many powerful enemies outside looking at you. With such strong strength, you should do your part to protect your homeland. Ancient One suddenly became a preacher and preached to Lin Yu. Lin Yu hurriedly waved his hand to stop Ancient One from continuing. Don't worry, the Earth is my home. I will not do anything to destroy the Earth. The goal of the Umbrella Company is the stars and the sea, not the Earth. Lin Yu said, slowly hearing Lin Yu's words. Ancient One also nodded. She believed what Lin Yu said was true. After all, in her eyes, there is no need for a strong man like Lin Yu to lie to herself. But Ancient One still has another question. Do you know I'm coming to find you? It was not surprising that Lin Yu knew his name, but when Lin Yu saw him, he was obviously not surprised. Obviously, he should know something. I didn't know you were coming, but I was already prepared. After Lin Yu finished speaking, he seemed to suddenly think of something and said to Weskier beside him, Oh, by the way, Weskier, tear off all the missiles aimed at Kamartaj and the 3 major holy places. Ancient One was slightly startled. Then a wry smile appeared on his face. What? Missiles against Kamartaj and the 3 holy places? Turns out he knows everything. Moreover, he was already prepared to fight him to the death and drag the entire Earth to bury him with him. Fortunately, I just lost the battle. Otherwise, the consequences will be disastrous. Big. Chapter 97, It should be more cruel Lin Yu was naturally fully prepared. A long time ago, Lin Yu arranged for Weskier to target Kamartaj and the 3 holy places with countless missiles in several secret bases. Lin Yu didn't want to drag the entire Earth to accompany him, but just so that he could use this to threaten the Ancient One when he was weak. This is the struggle of the weak to protect themselves. But now, these are no longer useful. Through that punch, just now, Lin Yu also understood his true combat power. I also understood how powerful the Ancient One's spells were. In this critical moment, the spell shield cast by Ancient One is definitely the strongest. There was no way she was joking with her own life. Therefore, after this collision, Lin Yu already felt confident. Being able to defeat the Ancient One, those missiles are naturally unnecessary. And Lin Yu 183 also doesn't want to be an enemy of the Ancient One. The Earth still needs Ancient One to protect it. There are some beings that you cannot deal with on your own, and you must rely on the ability of these magicians. Like Dormammu from the Dark Dimension. Without the Ancient One, Lin Yu might not be able to deal with it. Subsequently, Ancient One and Lin Yu chatted for a while, and Ancient One drew a portal in front of Lin Yu and left. This scene caused Alice and Weskier to worry again. The battle between their boss and the bald woman was an eye-opener for both of them. After being injected with the virus, the feeling of inflated self-confidence finally disappeared. They didn't expect that their boss was so powerful. I never thought that there would be such weird magicians on Earth. After the Ancient One left, Lin Yu and his 2 subordinates also focused their attention on the battlefield again. At the moment, the original battlefield has been cleaned up by the Umbrella Company. Not a single body was left on the ground. They have been returned to the Umbrella Company's Hive underground base in an orderly manner. Naturally, corpses cannot be wasted. After all, they're all raw materials for cloning, which can help the Umbrella Company expand the scale of its biochemical army. Even Chala was killed during the battle between Lin Yu and the Ancient One and was transported back to the Hive base. Lin Yu did not let Chala go because of his special status. After all, his father died in his own hands, and this kind of hatred cannot be eliminated. In this case, it is better to send him to the west directly. After cleaning the battlefield, Lin Yu issued new orders again. That is, completely occupy Wakanda and gather all the people in Wakanda. Since Wakanda's army and royal guards were wiped out, this was made very simple. Weskier took his team and got it done quickly. And at the moment, Lin Yu has also arrived in the control room of Wakanda Palace. Here, Lin Yu connects the Red Queen to Wakanda's independent network. Soon, the Red Queen completely took over the online world of Wakanda. All the secrets of Wakanda are also presented to Lin Yu's site. A few minutes later, Lin Yu took Alice to the secret underground space of Wakanda Palace. It's here. Countless machines are running nonstop. Underneath these machines, there are huge amounts of meteorites. A meteorite composed of vibranium that is buried in the soil and cannot be seen at all. Seeing this, Lin Yu also showed a smile. The purpose of destroying Wakanda is precisely for these vibranium meteorites. And this reserve seems to be much larger than I expected. Lin Yu turned his head and said to Alice, "Call Abigail over and let her see the vibranium mine here." After hearing Lin Yu's order, Alice hurriedly contacted Abigail, the head of the Umbrella Company's Weapons Research and Development Laboratory, who was still at the Umbrella Company's Hive underground base. 10 minutes later, Abigail came to Wakanda through the portal. Then, under Alice's guidance, came to Lin Yu's location. When she saw the huge vibranium mine shining with purple light underneath, Abigail was completely stunned. "I just asked the boss to get some vibranium, and the boss just bought a whole vibranium mine?" This simply exceeded Abigail's imagination. She used to think that the reserves of vibranium on Earth were pitifully small. But looking at it now, the vibranium that can be seen in front of you can completely arm all the 10,000 Umbrella Company soldiers to the teeth. Use vibranium to make a steel battle suit for each of them, which is more than enough. Abigail seemed to have found her purpose. She said excitedly, "Boss, how did you get these things?" When Abigail arrived, the entire Wakanda had been completely emptied, and all the corpses were transported back to the cloning laboratory in the Hive underground base. The ordinary people of Wakanda were also escorted back to a secret base of the Umbrella Company by Weskier. Therefore, she had no idea what happened before. Hearing Abigail's words, Lin Yu smiled slightly and said, "It's very simple, just destroying a small country." Destroyed a country? Abigail was suddenly startled. The boss's words were somewhat relaxed. But, based on her understanding of her boss, it was obvious that this was definitely not a trivial matter. Since this country has such a huge vibranium mine and the whole world does not know about it, it is obviously not a small country, as the boss said. But Abigail did not pursue the matter any further. Her biggest idea now is how to transport these vibranium mines back. However, before she could think about it, Lin Yu suddenly said, "From now on, move your weapons research and development laboratory directly here. This place will be your laboratory from now on." A weapons development lab built on top of a vibranium mine? Abigail was completely stunned by the huge amounts of happiness. Lin Yu gave everything in Wakanda to Abigail. When this thin woman saw the seemingly endless vibranium mine, her eyes shone with excitement. Lin Yu has great trust in several of his core subordinates. It is enough for Lin 4-6 to just put the resources they need into their hands. Lin Yu, on the other hand, took Alice through the portal and returned to Raccoon City. At the moment, Weskier was leading his men, escorting tens of thousands of Wakanda people with angry faces, quietly waiting for Lin Yu's arrival. Lin Yu actually wanted to find a new environment for them to live safely. But when he saw the hatred in these people's eyes, Lin Yu suddenly felt that he should be more cruel. Just a little is enough. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu took down the tesseract from the transmission device on the side. Then, he picked up a locator made by Dr. Eric. After a flash of blue light, Lin Yu's figure disappeared in front of everyone. Chapter 98, The Dark Elf Awakens. Even if Lin Yu felt that he should be more cruel, he still did not send the people of Wakanda to death. If you really want them to die, then send them directly to Jotunheim, which is full of giants of Jotunheim. Then they will all freeze to death within 2 days. But, with a flash of blue light, Lin Yu held the tesseract in his hand, but appeared in a place full of forests and grasslands with sweet air. After taking a breath of the air here, Lin Yu suddenly showed a smile. This place, Lin Yu has seen in the Thor 2 movie. Here is Vanaheim, the hometown of Hogun, one of the three warriors of Asgard. Various ethnic groups live in this place, and their living standards are still in the agricultural era. Moreover, some of the races living here are very similar to humans. So, if all these people from Wakanda were sent here, they might be able to survive if they were not lucky. However, it is not easy to have better luck, because Lin Yu knows that it doesn't seem to be peaceful here. Vanaheim was once inhabited by the Vanaprotoss, and it was considered a paradise-like place at that time. However, for some unknown reason, the Bina Clan 14 gradually disappeared from people's sight. Afterwards, various races and forces started a big melee. Whether you can survive or not depends on your luck. Lin Yu sneered and threw the locator on the ground. Then, a blue light flashed across his body again and disappeared. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu's figure appeared again in the secret base of the Umbrella Company Raccoon City. Lin Yu's sudden disappearance and reappearance obviously made these Vacan adults a little confused. They have never seen anything so weird. Even Wakanda's technology cannot allow people to suddenly teleport to other places. However, Lin Yu had no time to care about their doubts. Lin Yu turned around and put the Tesseract into the huge amounts of teleporter again. Then, he nodded to Dr. Eric. Dr. Eric operated it for a few seconds, and then a huge amount of portal appeared in everyone's sight. On the other side of the portal, you can see green grass everywhere, birds singing and flowers fragrant, and the air sweet. Lin Yu smiled slightly and said, "Although we are enemies, I'm not the one who wants to kill everyone. However, you can't stay on the Earth. I have chosen a planet for you that can allow humans to survive." Lin Yu nodded slightly to Weskier beside him, and Weskier led his men and began to drive away the Wakanda people. Although these people in Wakanda are somewhat reluctant, they do not have any power to choose. Driven by the armed members of the Umbrella Company, they all entered the portal. A few minutes later, more than 10,000 Wakanda people have all left the Earth. At this time, under the operation of Dr. Eric, the portal was slowly closed. It is estimated that they will never want to return to the Earth again in their lifetime. Without the Tesseract, it would be impossible for ordinary people like them to travel such great distances. Moreover, whether they can survive or not is another matter. Once the matter of the people of Wakanda is resolved, the whole matter of Wakanda is over. However, the relocation of the Umbrella Company's armed R&D laboratory is still in progress. During this period, Abigail should be the busiest. Moreover, the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory has some serious shortages of manpower. So, Weskier also rushed to help. Alice, on the other hand, became responsible for helping the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory recruit new personnel. After all, the location of the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory has been moved to distant Africa, and there are many things to consider when recruiting personnel. As for the other two large laboratories, the expansion work of the cloning laboratory is still in progress, and the injection work of the virus laboratory has not yet been completed, so they are both very busy. The most idle person in the entire Umbrella Company decisively became the big boss Lin Yu again. All the work seemed to be done without his intervention. But just when Lin Yu thought he could take a good rest, the Red Queen suddenly told Lin Yu a piece of news. "Boss, just now news about Thor was detected near an abandoned warehouse in London." The Red Queen's voice reached Lin Yu's ears. Lin Yu was slightly stunned. Regarding several core characters in the Marvel world, Lin Yu has always arranged for the Red Queen to track their whereabouts at all times. If any special circumstances arise, report them to yourself in a timely manner. But what is Thor doing in London? Then, Lin Yu suddenly thought of something. That is, I seem to have forgotten a plot. That is, at the beginning of Thor 2, the ether was discovered by Thor's girlfriend Jane Foster in an abandoned warehouse in London. After Jane Foster was possessed by the ether, Thor also came to the Earth again. Could it be that the plot of Thor 2 has already begun? Many memories flashed through Lin Yu's mind. At the end of the plot of Thor 2, the Dark Elves want to turn the entire universe into darkness through the ether. It was Thor who defeated the Dark Elves through something created by Dr. Eric. But the problem is that Dr. Eric is now serving himself and has not made the instruments that should have appeared at all. If he hadn't brought Dr. Eric back to the Umbrella Company, he would be running around naked around Stonehenge with the instruments he made. In this way, there's a problem. Without those instruments, can Thor still stop the Dark Elves? Maybe there might really be some problems. Lin Yu felt that he should take action against these Dark Elves. 867, after all, it would be of no benefit to them to be alive. And, in a Marvel world, there is another character that Lin Yu likes very much, who was killed by the Dark Elf. That is Thor's mother, Queen Frigga of Asgard. She was a very wise woman, and Lin Yu had always admired her. If he can save her by the way, it is also a good choice. Moreover, the genes of Dark Elves should also be able to increase the experience value of many biochemical technology trees. The three things that Lin Yu needed to complete gradually became clear in Lin Yu's mind. Kill the Dark Elves and stop them from turning the entire universe into darkness. Save Frigga and complete the legacy Lin Yu saw in the movie in his previous life. Obtain the genes of the Dark Elves and increase the experience value of the biochemical technology tree. At the moment, in a spaceship floating in the universe, a pale and ugly dark elf finally woke up from the darkness. He has been sleeping for thousands of years, and now, because Ti particles were activated again, they were finally awakened. After being awakened, the leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith, showed a hint of excitement. The era of the Dark Elves seemed to be coming. But little did he know that this world was no longer the world he knew, because, on the Earth, an unpredictable variable has appeared. Chapter 99 Malekith is confused just when Lin Yu is thinking about how to deal with the Dark Elves. Thor, having taken Jane Foster, who was possessed by the ether, on the Bifrost, arrived in Asgard. Jane Foster was quite excited when she first arrived in Asgard. But what she didn't know was that her arrival also brought disaster to Asgard. But the Dark Elves did not take immediate action. Their leader Malekith is an old rival with Asgard, so he is familiar with many things about Asgard. Therefore, he gave his most trusted subordinate the last cursed stone to the entire Dark Elf clan. This black stone, which is about the size of a child's fist, is one of the most powerful weapons of the Dark Elves. It played a huge amount of role in the war with Asgard. As long as the Dark Elf crushes this cursed stone, he will immediately become a powerful cursed warrior. And this Malekith's men were also secretly sent to a battlefield in the Nine Realms. Now, war is burning everywhere in the Nine Realms, and Asgard's army is also stopping these wars everywhere. As for those who stir up chaos, they usually catch them in Asgard's prison and imprison them. And this Malekith's man was also among the prisoners and was captured by Asgard soldiers. This is exactly one of Malekith's plans. The day after Jane Foster was taken to Asgard by Thor, the Dark Elf spaceship quietly arrived at Asgard. The Dark Elf spaceships are very advanced. Even after thousands of years have passed, they're still very powerful. They even narrowly escaped the eyes of Asgard Bifrost guard Heimdall. However, Heimdall eventually discovered the invisible craft. While attacking the spaceship, he hurriedly contacted the guards of the Asgard Palace, hoping to close the palace's protective shield as soon as possible. But just as the Dark Elf's spaceship flew towards the Asgard Palace, in the prison of the Asgard Palace, a Dark Elf wearing a mask suddenly took out a black crystal block from his body. Then, crushed it suddenly. A violent red light burst out from his body. Immediately afterwards, his body instantly became taller and stronger. There are also many lines on the skin on the body. A powerful cursed warrior appeared in Asgard prison. Asgard's prison couldn't hold him at all, and he escaped from it easily. Moreover, after killing the guards guarding the prison, the cursed warrior easily released all the criminals in the prison. Suddenly, the interior of the palace also turned into a chaotic scene, and Loki, who was also imprisoned in prison, suddenly felt a little jealous when he saw the chaos. He even gave the cursed warrior directions. That direction is exactly the direction of the protective shield control room of Asgard Palace. At the same time, it is also the direction of Queen Scarlet's room in Asgard. When Asgard was in chaos, Odin instantly realized the seriousness of the problem. He hurriedly ordered his son, Thor, to suppress the riot in the prison. Then, he asked his wife Scarlet to hide with Thor's human girlfriend, and he himself led the guards to prevent the invasion of the Dark Elves. Scarlet also understood that in the current situation, she as a woman seemed unable to help. She took Jane Foster's hand and ran toward her room. But when they arrived at Scarlet's room, they were suddenly shocked, because in his room, there was a strange man sitting. The man was wearing simple gray coarse cloth clothes. His body was very clean, and his head was also very clean. But the problem is, Scarlet has never seen this man. He is definitely not from Asgard. Who are you, and why are you in my room? Scarlet hurriedly protected Jane Foster behind her, and a short sword appeared in her hand. Although Scarlet is a witch, her sword skills are also very good. Facing the sudden appearance of a strange man, although she was nervous, she didn't have any fear. And at the moment, hearing the voice from behind, Lin Yu finally stood up slowly. He has been waiting here for a long time. Lin Yu couldn't estimate when the Dark Elves would arrive in Asgard. He could only come in advance. We just came over. A system prompt sounded in Lin Yu's mind. There are genetic hints from Odin, hints from the Dark Elf Malekith, and Dark Elf Curse warriors. This also let Lin Yu know that the Dark Elves seem to have arrived in Asgard. It's just that he hasn't come to kill Scarlet yet. However, this time, when Lin Yu stood up and turned his head, Jane Foster behind Scarlet was suddenly slightly startled. She suddenly poked her head out from behind Scarlet, pointed one finger at Lin Yu, and said with a shocked face, You are from Earth. You are the boss of the Umbrella Company. I know you. Lin Yu's predecessor was indeed very low-key. However, since Lin Yu traveled through time, the Umbrella Company has become less low-key. Several biochemical armies have been dispatched, making the Umbrella Company more and more people's attention. In particular, Lin Yu also became the second shareholder of Stark Industries. This company, which has always been on the cusp of controversy, has gradually made Lin Yu's identity known to people on the Earth. Hearing Jane Foster's words, Lin Yu suddenly showed a charming smile on his face. I didn't expect that there would be people who know me in Asgard, Lin Yu said with a smile. At the moment, Queen Scarlet of Asgard frowned in confusion. She did not turn her head, still staring at Lin Yu nervously, and then asked Jane Foster, Who is he? Scarlet did not ask Lin Yu, but asked Jane Foster directly. Compared to Lin Yu, a stranger who suddenly appeared in her room, she was more willing to believe in her son's girlfriend. Jane Foster hurriedly explained, His name is Lin Yu. He is the boss of a very large company on our planet. He used to be very low-key, but recently his name and the name of his company have often appeared in the public eye. Within sight, after thinking for a while, Jane Foster added, There is another thing. His company is very powerful. It seems that it has researched a lot of biochemical monsters. Hearing these words in Scarlet's ears made her even more confused. She was a little confused about what the company was. Not to mention any biochemical monsters. Stop, don't introduce me yet. Scarlet hurriedly stopped Jane Foster. The more Jane Foster introduced, the more confused she became. There is only one thing she wants to know now. That is, what is the purpose of an Earthling coming to his room quietly? Scarlet raised the dagger in her hand and asked coldly again, Tell me, what do you want to do? What is your purpose? Although he was pointed at with a dagger, Lin Yu's expression remained calm. He spread his hands and said, If I said I was here to save you, would you believe it? Scarlet obviously doesn't believe in change. Even Jane Foster didn't believe it. An Earthling traveled across the distant stars to save two women who had nothing to do with each other and had never even met before. What a joke. But just when Jane Foster and Scarlet were questioning Lin Yu's words, the door behind them was suddenly pushed open again. The dark elf Malekith, followed by the cursed warrior, came to the room. However, when Malekith saw the situation in the room, he was suddenly a little stunned. Why, besides myself, is there anyone else peeking at TIE particles? Chapter 100. Have a good fight. Must read. Malekith was quite confused. After working hard to get through the Asgard blockade and sending his most powerful warriors to cooperate with each other, he finally arrived at Frigga's room. Moreover, the TIE particles are in the body of the Earth Woman, so close to her eyes. At this time, why did an accident suddenly happen? The face of the dark elf leader Malekith suddenly became even colder. He would never allow any accidents. The gathering of celestial bodies in the 9 realms, which only occurs once every 5,000 years, is about to occur. At that time, I can use TIE particles to directly pull the entire universe into endless darkness. At this time, TIE particles must be absolutely controlled by oneself. This is related to the future of the Dark Elves. If you miss this opportunity, you will have to wait another 5,000 years. That was something Malekith would never allow. And at the same time, just when the Dark Elf came to this room, Frigga hurriedly took Jane Foster a few steps back. Her expression became even more nervous. An Earthling who quietly appeared in his room, coupled with the Dark Elves, it was a bit chaotic. However, Frigga is very smart. She has already guessed that these two groups of people should be coming for the Earth Woman behind her, or in other words, for the TIE particles in her body. Those TIE particles were originally the weapons of the Dark Elves. For 97, it is normal for them to want to snatch it back. But that Earthling didn't know why he came to snatch TIE particles. At the moment, in Frigga's room, a 3-party confrontation situation formed. However, the one who receives the least attention is Linyu. He was a newcomer after all, and no one knew him except Jane Foster. And this time, the leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith, could no longer wait. After all, this is the territory of Asgard. If you wait for Odin or his son to come, it will be difficult to obtain TIE particles again. He said to the cursed warrior behind him, "Go and get rid of that bald head, and I'll get the TIE particles." The two Dark Elves were ready to split up. Behind Malekith, the impossibly strong, cursed warrior had a sinister smile on his face. He slowly walked towards Linyu. Linyu is still very clear about the strength of this cursed warrior. In the plot of Thor 2, even Thor is not his opponent. Not only is he very powerful, but his defense is also terrifyingly strong. Even if he resisted Mjolnir's attack, he was still unscathed. However, the more powerful the gene, the more experience points it can provide to your biochemical technology tree. Linyu also became excited. But Linyu has not forgotten his other mission. At this moment, a light flashed in front of Linyu, and 3 biochemical monsters suddenly appeared. In the biochemical culture tank in Linyu's mind, there are 3 biochemical monsters given by the system at any time. They are a desperate tyrant, a thunder licker, and a frost hunter. As soon as the 3 monsters appeared, they instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the room. Malekith and Frigga's expressions became ugly at the same time. These 3 monsters have different sizes and shapes, but they all look like they are not easy to mess with. Their shapes are more terrifying than the last, and they are uglier than the evil ghosts in the underworld. But Jane Foster, who was protected by Frigga, was surprisingly not afraid when she saw these 3 monsters. There was actually a hint of excitement on her face. As an Earthling, how can we not know about these monsters? When they were resisting the alien invasion in New York, they were regarded as the guardians of the Earth by most people on Earth, especially the huge, desperate tyrant, who killed countless huge alien spaceships in an instant during the Battle of New York. Jane Foster stood beside it, and actually felt a sense of security. All in all, the Dark Garden looks much more pleasing to the eye. Unknowingly, Jane Foster's body began to slowly move a few steps towards the 3 biochemical monsters. Jane Foster's behavior made Frigga frown. However, at this time, all her attention is on the enemy, and she has no time to care about Jane Foster's little moves. And at the moment, Linyu suddenly smiled and said, "Don't be afraid. These 3 are my pets. They will protect you." After Linyu finished speaking, sure enough, the 3 biochemical monsters stood in front of Jane Foster and Frigga, directly facing the dark elf Malekith. This scene made Malekith look even more ugly. If it drags on any longer, Odin will discover his purpose. He finally drew his long sword from his waist and prepared to fight, and beasts at the same time. The cursed warrior also acted again, heading towards Linyu. The smile on Linyu's face suddenly disappeared, and he had no hesitation at all. The huge power in his body exploded in an instant. The last time, the battle with the Ancient One was not entirely enjoyable, defeating the Ancient One with 1 punch. But this time, it seems that we should be able to have a good time. Cursed warriors are very resistant to beatings, so let's try how resistant they are. A deafening sound suddenly erupted from Lin Yu's feet. The floor of Frigga's room was instantly trampled into a big hole. Lin Yu's figure also turned into an afterimage, and he punched the cursed warrior. The power of this punch was almost the same as when he faced Ancient One before. The difference is that the cursed warrior did not react as quickly as the Ancient One. When Lin Yu's fist came to his chest, he couldn't even react, and Lin Yu just took action. The leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith, was also shocked. Lin Yu's speed is really too fast. Only an explosion-like sound was heard, and the other party's figure completely disappeared. Malekith suddenly felt a chill in his heart, and an unpleasant feeling arose spontaneously. Boom! As soon as the thoughts in Malekith's mind came up, Lin Yu's fist was firmly stamped on the chest of the cursed warrior. The cursed warrior's body instantly turned into a cannonball and was shot away. Moreover, it directly smashed countless walls of the Asgard palace and disappeared from Malekith's sight. The power of Lin Yu's punch was so terrifying. Lin Yu, on the other hand, turned his head, glanced at everyone in the room, and turned into an afterimage again, rushing towards the cursed warrior. Although the punch just hit the cursed warrior's chest, Lin Yu could feel that the opponent did not suffer much damage. His chest seemed flat without any dent. It was just that the body was knocked away. As expected, the strongest thing about the cursed warrior is his defense. But even though Lin Yu paused slightly, his speed still surpassed the cursed warrior who was knocked away again. Boom! Another punch directly knocked the cursed warrior's body away instantly. At the moment, Frigga's room, only Jane Foster, Frigga, and the dark elf leader Malekith were left. There are also 3 biochemical monsters quietly blocking Malekith's front. At this moment, listening to the deafening sound coming from the distance, neither Frigga nor Malekith had recovered from the shock. Lin Yu's attack was really terrifying. Even Malekith was a little stunned, and Frigga was even more shocked. The other person looked like an ordinary person. How could he be so strong? She turned her head, looked at Jane Foster, and asked weakly, "Is he really a human on your Earth?"
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.